Chapter 1432. In the beginning, the Buddha fire was golden in color. Tyrant separated the 3 bundles of Buddha fire and transformed them into 3 different kinds of strange colors. Past, present, and future, the 3 Buddha fires condensed on the top of the monk's head and swirled around his purple and gold kasaya. The gray Buddha fire represented the past. It symbolized the path that had already been taken. You could cherish the past, but you didn't have to cling to it. The meaning of gray was, let go of your attachment after having it. There were worries, but there were no more worries. Green Buddha fire represented the present. It represented good wishes for a smooth future. And white Buddha fire represented the future. It symbolized the unpredictability and all kinds of uncertainties. When the 3 flames gathered, it was like 3 flowers gathering above one's head, and the monk instantly became different. Bald donkey, I'm going to get serious. I'll definitely destroy you with my next attack. Pengshiren narrowed his eyes and his whole body blossomed with starlight. Starlight gathered under his feet like a storm and transformed into a huge Qilin mount. This was a Dharma mount summoned by a powerful ability. The monk had thought it would be a star dragon, and hadn't expected it to be a Qilin. The dual Dharma form of a dragon and a Qilin. Tyrant frowned slightly. He looked at the young man who was surrounded by the starlight in front of him. A trace of unusual change that was invisible to the naked eye flashed across his calm expression. He was Tao ancestor Wang's only disciple. Pengshiren was indeed the #1 favored son of heaven since ancient times. The imperial Dharma images of a dragon and a Qilin could actually appear on one person at the same time. If anyone else had been here, they would definitely have been scared out of their wits. Kill. Standing on the Qilin's head with one hand on the Qilin's horn, Wang Ling spurred the mount down like a falling mountain toward the monk. The Qilin raised its front hooves and abruptly smashed them down. The star dragon mark on Wang Ling's body burst out with light, and the twin life magic superimposed on each other, giving him immense strength. At the same time, Wang Ling was calmly observing the battle on the front line through the king's eye. As expected, it's very strong. At least the special effects are good enough. Loopy Toad watched on the side with trepidation. In terms of the situation, the duel between Pengshiren and the monk didn't seem inferior to the duel between Wang Ling and Wang Ying earlier. The image projected by the king's eye could also very realistically convey the oppressive feeling of the scene here. He comes from the infinite Milky Way and is Tao ancestor Wang's #1 disciple. As expected, he's extraordinary. Loopy Toad sighed as it observed a certain person's reaction on the side. To be honest, after seeing Pengshiren's strength, Loopy Toad suddenly had doubts in its heart. It didn't know if Wang Ling could beat Pengshiren. However, this concern was quickly dispelled. Because on the side, Wang Ling's expression didn't change in the slightest. It was as if they were watching an ordinary movie with special effects. No ripples were actually the best reaction. This proved that Commander Ling's strength was definitely not inferior to Pengshiren's, so here's the problem. Even if he could defeat them, would Pengshiren be insta-killed like the others before him? It was too curious and couldn't help asking Wang Ling, how is it? Wang Ling, ? Loopy Toad, can this person be insta-killed? Wang Ling, very difficult. Is it difficult? Loopy Toad's face was full of disbelief. It was extremely astonished. It hadn't expected that the Lord it had known for so long would give such an answer. But since he had said so, it seemed that this Pengshiren indeed wasn't an ordinary person. Wang Ying couldn't help laughing as she looked at Loopy Toad. What are you thinking? What Commander Ling means is that it's very difficult for this Pengshiren not to be insta-killed. Loopy Toad was stunned. So this was the true meaning of very difficult? What F** king difficult? Loopy Toad, this is a Tao ancestor. Wang Ying, Tao ancestor, what's wrong? If he's a Tao ancestor, doesn't he need to be slapped? Loopy Toad, but I clearly saw Little Master Ling's troubled expression. Wang Ying, he thinks it's too monotonous to slap him to death every time, and doesn't know what to do. Loopy Toad. And Wang Ying's eyes dimmed at this point, and she didn't say anything else. There was another thing. The source of the fortune teller was undoubtedly Peng Shiren. This debt needed to be settled. And from the looks of it, there was a lot of other information on Peng Shiren. It would be a pity to kill him directly. It would be best if he could be beaten half to death. So keeping his HP down was very important. This was the problem that Wang Ling was having a headache over. Elsewhere, the battle between Peng Shiren and the monk was still going on. The Qilan Dharma image soared through the sky, and when its iron hooves stomped down, the monk's body was instantly torn apart and crushed into golden powder. It's a fake body. But Peng Shiren was Peng Shiren in the end. As Tao ancestor Wang's only disciple, he could see through the monk's trick of using a fake body at a glance. To be able to swap a leopard cat for a crown prince right under Peng Shiren's nose, Peng Shiren couldn't help but admire the monk's magic power. Monk, you can't get rid of me. In the universe, all the stars are my eyes. Although he still couldn't see the monk's figure, he clearly knew where the monk's real body was. Earlier, the monk had used 3 balls of Buddha fire to cover himself. These 3 kinds of Buddha fire, which controlled the power of the past, present and future, could distort time and space, thus diluting one's spatial presence. But this trick obviously wouldn't fool Peng Shiren. This poor monk is here. When the monk stood in front of Peng Shiren again, Peng Shiren realized that the monk's head was aimed at him. Peng Shiren actually didn't understand what the monk was trying to do. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Monk, are you trying to use the iron head technique to hit me? I'm afraid you can't withstand my physical strength at all. Hitting me with your head is just digging your own grave. Just as he finished speaking, in front of him, the monk's head suddenly emitted a series of machine gun-like da-da-da-da-da sounds, and blue flames rapidly appeared. Tens of thousands of missiles appeared from the 6 scars on the monk's head. These missiles were only the size of a pen, but each of them contained shocking and terrifying energy. What was that? Peng Shiren was puzzled by the monk's actions. To be honest, he was shocked. The missiles that were fired from the scars on the monk's head were shockingly powerful and filled with unimaginable power. Most importantly, Peng Shiren actually smelled the scent of a heavenly tribulation. This monk can actually use his own abilities to summon the heavenly tribulation. Peng Shiren frowned, finding it hard to understand. The heavenly tribulation was a divine power that was naturally produced when one's realm crossed. The higher one's realm, the stronger the heavenly tribulation they faced. Peng Shiren remembered that when he leaped from the Tao God realm to the Tao ancestor realm, the scene was so exaggerated that he nearly died in that tribulation. But now, the missiles that the monk fired from the scars were actually the same power as when he transcended the heavenly tribulation. How did he do it? The monk couldn't help but laugh. This is the power of the heavenly tribulation that this penniless monk absorbed after nearly 4,000 reincarnations. Now, this penniless monk will shoot them all out and give you a wave of rockets. Chapter 1433. It was the energy of the apocalypse that the monk had condensed after almost 4,000 reincarnations. During every apocalypse, the monk had the habit of absorbing the energy of the apocalypse with the ring scar and storing it. All the energy would reside in the top of the monk's skull as a backup energy source for emergencies. For example, when the monk traveled the universe, the apocalypse could supply him with a huge amount of spiritual energy in case he ran out of spiritual energy. For example, when the monk wanted to eat hot pot, he would set up a pot above his head, put some vegetables in it, and heat it with the spiritual energy brought by the apocalypse. Another example was the monk's light consecration technique. The consecration technique consumed a lot of spiritual energy, but it was much more convenient with the energy of the apocalypse. The energy of the apocalypse that was stored could also be used as a weapon. As long as it was combined with the iron in his body, the monk could quickly condense a missile coat that contained the energy of the apocalypse and launch it from his ring scar. What a lunatic. He's actually storing the apocalypse in his skull. Peng Shiren did not expect the monk to have such a trick at all. The energy of the apocalypse was too violent. Was it something that could be stored in one's head? If it was not careful, one's head might explode. It could only be said that the monk was indeed an iron-headed man. Such an action was no different from installing a nuclear power plant in one's head, which was in a state of high risk of leakage at any time. And now, the monk had created a lot of weapons with a mobile nuclear power plant in his head. What a joke. That was not the way of cultivation at all. Peng Shiren's expression was grave. The missiles that were launched seemed small, but they were extremely destructive. More importantly, there were too many of them. It was no different from the scene of tens of thousands of godly punishments descending on the world. Staring at the countless missiles, Peng Shiren immediately moved away to avoid them. However, the missiles had a tracking function and could completely ignore the obstacles in front of them. The aura of the apocalypse emitted from the warheads formed an energy coat that protected the warheads during the shuttle, which could ignore all the small meteorites in front of them. I have to block them with something bigger. Peng Shiren condensed the strength of his fist and punched through a small planet in front of him. He repaired the damaged planet with the power of stars the moment he passed it. His movement was so fast that some of the missiles that were tracking him crashed into it. Then, the planet would be blown to smithereens. Boom! The planet exploded. Accompanied by the shrill screams of the planet's spirit, flames and high temperatures erupted into the sky. At that moment, Peng Shiren looked behind him and saw that a large number of guided missiles had rushed out of the explosion zone. Damn it, Peng Shiren did not expect this guided missile to be so powerful. He used this method to try to exhaust the missiles, but found that in reality, it did not consume much at all. The guided missiles of the apocalypse were too powerful. Only one or two of the missiles at the front would be able to blow up a planet, and the large group of missiles behind them would still be able to pass through safely without any damage. There's no other way, monk. You forced me to do this. Peng Shiren realized that at this moment, if he didn't come up with some tricks, he would probably be at a disadvantage in this battle. Peng Shiren hadn't wanted to use his next killer move, which he had planned to use against Wang Ling. He might even be able to kill that young man with a single punch. But now, Peng Shiren felt that he had no choice but to act. These tens of thousands of guided missiles were indeed hard to deal with. But the monk had accumulated these guided missiles over a long period of time, and they weren't endless. Peng Shiren could only dodge them as he gathered the power of the stars around him. He was like a moving black hole that sucked in all the starlight nearby and condensed it into his body. The monk saw that the star dragon mark on Peng Shiren's body was glowing. At that moment, the monk's lips curled up coldly. Because he had already achieved his goal. The monk hadn't used the guided missiles to kill Peng Shiren in the first place. This man's methods were superb, and he definitely had a way to deal with guided missiles of this level. So from the beginning, the monk's goal had been to force out more of Peng Shiren's unique skills. He knew that Wang Ling was definitely watching the battle at that very moment. In this duel between the monk and Peng Shiren, winning or losing wasn't the key. The key was for Wang Ling on the other side to better understand Peng Shiren. After firing around 160,000 guided missiles, the monk's inventory was almost empty. The blue fire on the scar on the top of his head disappeared, and steam billowed out. Peng Shiren knew that his chance had come. Monk. Your turn is over, it's my turn. The monk raised his eyebrows. He himself hadn't expected that his battle with Peng Shiren would actually be a turn-based game. But what kind of skill on earth would the other party use? The monk was also very curious. At that moment, the monk raised his smoking head and looked in front of him. He saw Peng Shiren suddenly stop somewhere in the depths of the Milky Way. Starlight burst out of his body and gave off a terrifying light. All the starlight he had absorbed while dodging earlier burst out at that moment, like a small sun. In just a split second, it was as if time in front of him had stopped. The burst of starlight actually distorted space and time, causing the flow of time in the surroundings to drop and slowing down the heavenly tribulation-guided missiles that were charging forward at top speed. At that moment it was as if the entire universe had been imprisoned, and only Peng Shiren's destructive starlight was dazzling and dazzling. This divine ability was so astonishing that even the monk was astonished for a moment. A few seconds felt like an eternity, then. From a distance, Peng Shiren threw a punch in the monk's direction. Milky Way fist. Rumble. At that moment, all the starlight in Peng Shiren's body burst out, and a star dragon the size of a trillion charged at the monk as if it could directly reach the ends of the universe. This was a terrifying punch formed from the power of countless stars. Howl! As the star dragon closed in on the monk at the speed of light, it split into thousands and tens of thousands of dragons, and the sound shook the entire universe. The Milky Way outside the Milky Way was no longer calm. The enormous beam of energy produced by the Milky Way fist smashed everything in its path to smithereens. Monk, this is the last blow. Peng Shiren looked at his masterpiece, full of confidence. It went without saying that his Milky Way fist was immensely powerful. If he charged it longer, it would be even more powerful. This punch might not be able to kill the monk, but Peng Shiren didn't think it would be a problem at all for it to seriously injure him. Just as the Milky Way fist was about to reach the monk, at that moment, a figure appeared in front of the monk. "Welcome, immortal king." The monk closed his eyes and smiled. He stared at the incomparably dazzling star dragon that was the manifestation of the Milky Way fist in front of him, and blew gently. Whoosh! There was a bang. The vast expanse of starlight in front of him instantly vanished like a candle flame. Chapter 1434. The Galaxy Fist was extremely powerful, and Wang Ling could clearly sense the universe resonating with it when it was used. He was worried that the monk wouldn't be able to withstand this blow, so he made a move. Although he hadn't used all his strength in this blow, it was definitely more than enough to withstand a head-on impact. But Wang Ling never expected that Peng Shiren's Galaxy Fist would actually be as weak as a candle, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a wisp of smoke and disappeared. A little weak, Wang Ling felt that it was completely different from what he had imagined. Of course, the upper limit of the Galaxy Fist was actually quite high. After all, it was a fist technique that accumulated power. As long as Peng Shiren had enough time, he might really be able to accumulate enough power to injure Loopy Toad. After all, the universe was really too big. Boundless. Surrounded by countless stars, Peng Shiren gathered the power of the stars and condensed it into energy, which could be said to be inexhaustible. In the Yin and Sword King world, Wang Ying was broadcasting the scene in Wang Ling's place. He didn't have the king's eye. Thus, he could only use the shadow imaging spell, 4K, super high frame rate, smooth movements, zero delay. The only drawback was that the image was black and white. It gave Loopy Toad the feeling that it was watching an old black and white movie. Wang Ling had personally gone to help the monk, and Sword King world would be fine with him and Jingbai there. Loopy Toad was so startled by this scene that its mouth fell open. Why do I feel like I just blew a birthday cake? It's already very impressive to be able to offset Lord Ling's breath. Otherwise, this breath might have directly pierced through the air and hit him, Wang Ying said as he folded his arms. So, the progenitor realm is actually very strong? Loopy Toad asked. Of course. Wang Ying nodded. There aren't many people in this world who are at the progenitor realm. Even the heads of the major families in the domain of the gods haven't been able to take this step. Only this person from the Gu family has shown some signs of it. Although this realm is extraordinary, it's still nothing compared to Lord Ling, Loopy Toad. Earlier, Wang Ling and Wang Ying had been worried about the infinite galaxy. Due to their lack of understanding of the infinite galaxy, they had imagined Peng Shiren to be a little too powerful, since he was an expert who could remove the Dao Talisman seal. Now that they saw it, they couldn't help but think, that's it? At that moment, Loopy Toad sighed. It looks like this Peng Shiren is going to die. Not necessarily. Wang Ying shook his head. Your lordship didn't intend to kill him, because there are still many questions he wants to ask him. Besides, this is a progenitor realm expert after all. He probably has many methods of resurrection. That's true. Loopy Toad nodded. At this moment, it suddenly had a question in its head. It was normal for someone like Peng Shiren to have life-saving skills. However, no matter how troublesome he was, could he be more troublesome than that Baizha? Who knew what that Baizha would think of him in the future and forcefully come over to cause trouble? On the other side, outside the Milky Way, after Wang Ling had quelled the Milky Way fist in one breath, the nearby space fell into a momentary silence. "It's you." At that moment, Peng Shiren stared in horror at the figure that had suddenly appeared in front of the monk like a ghost. The corner of his eyes twitched. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The Milky Way fist that he had condensed was extinguished by his opponent effortlessly. This was something Peng Shiren did not expect. He had long known that Wang Ling was very strong. He was definitely an expert above the progenitor realm, but now, Peng Shiren felt that he had still slightly underestimated Wang Ling's true battle strength. Although the monk's words earlier had been very soft, Peng Shiren had still heard them. He had heard Monk Golden Lamp say, "Welcome, Immortal King." Immortal King, what realm was this? After Tao Ancestor, all the realms had the word Ancestor. And Tao Ancestor was the beginning of the progenitor realm. But as far as Peng Shiren knew, there was no realm called Immortal King. Could it be that this was another realm beyond the progenitor realm? How was that possible? Peng Shiren frowned slightly. He didn't want to believe it. But this handsome man with dead fish eyes was standing in front of him. He didn't give off the slightest aura, but just by standing there, Peng Shiren felt an indescribable pressure. "How dare you call yourself an immortal king? Even my Shifu isn't as conceited as you." Peng Shiren stared at Wang Ling's starlight gathered in his hands, and it looked like he was trying to condense a second Milky Way fist. Wang Ling had already sensed it long ago, but pretended not to know. In any case, this punch actually wasn't much of a threat to him when it didn't have enough power to build up. Immortal King, for Wang Ling, this was just a title. In fact, even Wang Ling himself didn't know what his limits were. At the very beginning, when he was born, his realm had steadily increased every 2 years. But after that, the speed at which his realm grew was out of control. Until now, even Wang Ling himself didn't know how many realms he had broken through. There were even times when he broke through unconsciously. When he was sleeping, when he was studying, when he was squatting on the toilet, when he was eating crispy noodle snacks, when he was voting for Kuchuan, he could break through at any time. And the strange thing was that he didn't need to go through a tribulation each time he broke through. He was completely different from other cultivators. So he didn't know if it was because he was born with amazing bones, or because the heavenly tribulation didn't dare provoke him at all. Bzzzt. While Wang Ling was in a daze, Peng Shiren in front of him moved again. He condensed godly power in his hands, and as he did so, he solidified the Dharma imprints on his arms. As if they had awakened, the 2-star dragon imprints abruptly jumped out of his arms and wrapped around Peng Shiren's forearms layer by layer. The dragons coiled around each other until they finally formed a spiral muzzle. It seems that this is the complete form of the Milky Way fist. The monk was astonished. He hadn't expected Peng Shiren to be able to transform his Dharma into a weapon. The power of the Milky Way fist in this form would be even greater. Peng Shiren was immensely pleased with himself and full of confidence. "Wang Ling. You dare wait for me? Milky Way Cannon Fist Cannon. Have you finished accumulating power?" Wang Ling spread his hands indifferently and motioned for Peng Shiren to do as he pleased. Peng Shiren was infuriated by Wang Ling's frivolous attitude. "You're not even going to use your Dharma? Are you looking down on me? Do you think you can withstand my punch with just your physical strength?" Wang Ling, hearing this, he sighed silently. He just felt that this person in front of him was so troublesome. It was clearly for this person's sake that he hadn't used his Dharma. In the end, Peng Shiren blamed Wang Ling for looking down on him. Since he had already said so, Wang Ling felt that he didn't need to be polite anymore. In the blink of an eye, a dot the size of a grain of rice appeared on Wang Ling's face. From a distance, it looked like a tear mole at the corner of his right eye. "Are you kidding me? This mole is your Dharma?" The corner of Peng Shiren's mouth twitched as he stared at the mole at the corner of Wang Ling's eye. And then, there was no then, staring at the mole, he instantly felt the space around him expand infinitely, and his entire mind went into a trance. In the next moment, Peng Shiren's face turned deathly pale. Because in this black mole, Peng Shiren saw something that he could not imagine, and that was terrifying. Chapter 1435. Peng Shiren rubbed his eyes. At first, he thought he was seeing things. Impossible, the thing hidden in that mole made his hair stand on end. There was no mistaking it. Although, it was only a faint outline, he couldn't see the true form of the Dharma in the mole. He could only catch a glimpse of its outline. His eyes were already bloodshot. Then, with a poochie sound, Peng Shiren's eyes spat out 2 streams of blood, as if they were meatballs that had been pissed. Then, they quickly recovered under the starlight around them. The monk was amazed by Peng Shiren's means. It was indeed a little scary to be able to repair itself despite Wang Ling's backlash. Back then, when he was trying to trace the source of the royal decree, one of his vases had been destroyed. And now, Tyrant guessed that the thing Peng Shiren saw should be the faint silhouette of a human being born in the primal chaos. Tyrant had a guess in his heart, but he wasn't sure what it was. But looking at Peng Shiren's pale face, he seemed to have recognized the origin of this human silhouette. You. Why do you have such a thing on you? Peng Shiren was frightened, and the hairs on his body stood up. He was sure that he was not mistaken. Through the mole in the corner of Wang Ling's eye, Peng Shiren felt as if there was another universe hidden inside it. This black mole was like a black hole, attracting his gaze and gradually guiding his spirit, completing a high-speed interstellar travel. And in the center of the universe that this black mole had transformed into, what Peng Shiren saw was the human silhouette born from the chaos, the spirit of the universe. This was what he had seen. A person could actually transform the spirit of the universe into a Dharma idol? But from the looks of it, the spirit of the universe doesn't seem to have fully awakened. If he were to wait for the cosmos spirit to truly awaken, the young man before him might become even more powerful than he was now. Peng Shiren's Adam's apple bobbed. He had always thought that Wang Ling was just a progenitor expert hiding on Earth like a monk. But in the end, Peng Shiren realized that he had underestimated the young man in front of him. If he wanted to kill him, he could only do so now, before he was fully formed. If he were to wait until he matured, he would not be able to defeat him at all. In his hand was Peng Shiren's Milky Way cannon punch. Still accumulating power, he looked at Wang Ling. If you have the ability, wait for me to accumulate power for a while more. Wang Ling shrugged indifferently. He could actually feel that Peng Shiren was very regretful now. She regretted her words back then, forcing him to summon his Dharma. If he did not have the Dharma form, Peng Shiren might have already punched. But after seeing Wang Ling's Dharma idol, Peng Shiren instantly felt that this little bit of power was probably far from enough, so he once again applied to accumulate power. To be honest, he really wanted to slap himself to death. Why did he have to be so eloquent in the midst of a great battle? However, the problem was that even Peng Shiren himself did not expect the youth before him to possess an aspect that was the universe's spirit. Wasn't that what his master had been searching for and giving up on? Are you done? At that moment, Wang Ling stared at Peng Shiren, and his flat voice rang in Peng Shiren's mind. No. Let's wait a little longer. Peng Shiren frowned. His face was completely red from the accumulation of power. Wang Ling was familiar with this state. It was like what Father Wang usually felt when he squatted on the toilet because of constipation. Constipation also required power. In addition to accumulating power, he also had to learn precise calculations. Peng Shiren needed to calculate how much power he needed to accumulate before he could defeat himself. And Father Wang needed to calculate what kind of shape he should take after he finished accumulating power so that the water splashing into the toilet wouldn't splash his butt. In that moment, these two completely different behaviors were surprisingly strikingly similar to each other. Sure enough, life was full of knowledge. Wang Ling sighed in his heart. He counted the time on his fingers, then looked at Peng Shiren and warmly reminded him, "Are you done? You're so annoying. Can't you wait a little longer?" Annoyed by the question, Peng Shiren flipped out on the spot. The monk laughed coldly. With such a bad attitude, I think Ling Zhenren shouldn't wait any longer and just attack. Bald donkey. This is a fight between me and him, don't get in the way. Hearing the monk's words, Peng Shiren instantly panicked. He was afraid that Wang Ling would attack before he finished accumulating power, so he almost immediately roared. But Wang Ling was silent and didn't say anything. He knew that Peng Shiren was anxious. But he was willing to keep waiting. Even if he died, he wanted Peng Shiren to know why he died. After about another quarter of an hour, when he had memorized pi to more than 10,000 digits, Peng Shiren finally moved. On the other side, Peng Shiren finally responded. I'm coming, Wang Ling. It's finally starting. Wang Ling sighed in his heart. He had never felt that fighting with someone could actually be so torturous. He had waited long enough for this punch. He hoped that Peng Shiren could really hurt him, even if it was just a scratch on his skin. After all, Wang Ling had never had a scratch on his skin since he was a child. When he fell, the surroundings would shake, and even the spirit of the earth would tremble. Wang Ling, you actually let me accumulate power for so long. I'm telling you, this will be the most regretful decision you'll ever make in your life. At that moment, Peng Shiren suddenly grit his teeth. Die. The next moment, he threw a punch. This was the Milky Way Cannon Fist Cannon, which he had been accumulating power for nearly half an hour. Finally, it flew out of his hand. A light wave with a radius as large as the sun blasted straight in Wang Ling's direction. Everything in its path was destroyed, and the planets in its way were directly pierced through, accompanied by the screams of the spirits of the major planets and the roar of the planet's core explosion. The light of the cannon version of the Milky Way fist instantly flew in front of Wang Ling. Boom. In the end, this cannon accurately bombarded Wang Ling. There was a huge explosion where Wang Ling was. The terrifying impact of the Milky Way fist's light wave shook the universe, and the resulting blast wave caused the surrounding planets to move several light years away. This scene was like a series of chain reactions when the cue of a billiard ball hit the billiard ball. The monk was amazed by the scene. Success. Peng Shiren was pleasantly surprised. However, he had only been happy for less than 3 seconds when the unscathed figure of the youngster gradually appeared in front of him amid the devastating light of the explosion. No way. Sweat beads the size of beans covered Peng Shiren's face almost instantly. This punch, which he had been accumulating power for half an hour, in the end, the youngster in front of him was actually unscathed. Not bad. Wang Ling raised his eyebrows and rubbed his hair with his index finger. Under Peng Shiren's cannon version of the Milky Way fist, his hair had curled up. Peng Shiren. He had given him a perm. In all these years, Wang Ling had never permed his hair. Because his hair was too hard, he couldn't do it at all. And now, he was even more reluctant to kill Peng Shiren. Wang Ling felt that Peng Shiren had the potential to be Tony's teacher. Chapter 1436. Curly hair? That was a pretty good experience. After the cannon version of the Galaxy Fist, Wang Ling's hair became curly with a very natural curve. Furthermore, this curl should be able to last for a while. After all, this was an attack that Peng Shiren had accumulated strength for 30 minutes. If Wang Ling's hair reverted to its normal hairstyle in a few seconds, that would be too disrespectful to Peng Shiren. At the very least, the accumulated energy from the Galaxy Fist had curled his hair. In Wang Ling's view, Peng Shiren's strength wasn't too bad. But for it to kill Wang Ling, Peng Shiren was probably still a little lacking. When Wang Ling looked at Peng Shiren again, he saw that Peng Shiren's nervous expression had changed. It had been pale white at first, but now it had turned a dark purple. His face was full of doubt that was beyond comprehension. You, what realm on earth are you? Wang Ling shook his head. To be honest, he didn't know either. The title of Immortal King wasn't bad, but that was what the monk had said. Currently, there was no clear concept of what realm came after the Ancestor Realm. Back then, on Ninefold Star, where the domain of the gods was located, Dao Ancestor Wang, the founder of Ninefold Star, had also been called Immortal King by some people. However, this title seemed too big, and Dao Ancestor Wang hadn't accepted it. Now, the question had fallen back on Wang Ling. So, did he deserve it? Wang Ling felt that perhaps he was also a little lacking. What on earth is your relationship with my Shifu? Peng Shiren stared at Wang Ling. The last person who had made him feel so oppressed was his Shifu Dao ancestor Wang. Shiren, you know very well. Ling Jinren and Dao ancestor Wang have nothing to do with each other. At that moment, the monk interjected. At first, this humble monk also suspected it, but later I realized that the difference between them is very obvious. This was the monk's euphemistic way of putting it. The most obvious difference was, of course, the difference in strength. The heavenly Dao magic cube was something that Dao ancestor Wang had painstakingly created, but in Wang Ling's hands, it was nothing more than a casual pinch. This gap was so big that it was like hundreds of millions of Mariana Trenches separating them. It was impossible to cross. Apart from that, the most obvious point, which had just been revealed, was the problem with Wang Ling's Dharma idol. Dao ancestor Wang's Dharmic idol was a creature named Ho. It had a pair of feet on its head and wide wings. Normally, it was in human form, and it wore a set of metal armor that was covered in heavenly Dao runes. It towered between heaven and earth, hundreds of millions of zhang tall. The monk had only seen it once. At that time, it gave monk Jin Deng a great shock. However, the bigger the Dharma idol, the stronger it would be. So when it came to Wang Ling's Dharma idol, Wang Ling didn't care. Then there was no need for further discussion. The spirit of the universe. It was nothing more than a silhouette that resembled a human silhouette. One couldn't even see its face clearly, but that oppressive feeling was enough to make one kneel down in submission just by looking at it. This was a powerful creature known as the center of the universe. An existence that controlled an entire universe, an existence that was the spirit of all the planets. At that moment, hearing monk Jin Deng's astonished voice, Wang Ling looked at him and asked telepathically, "So, is he very strong?" Monk Jin Deng, of course. Wang Ling, oh, in fact, if the monk and Peng Shiren hadn't been secretly shocked, Wang Ling really wouldn't have known that his Dharma idol was the spirit of the universe. This was the first time Wang Ling had heard of this. Previously, he had seen other people's Dharma idols, which were big and mighty. His Dharma idol was just a humanoid creature, and Wang Ling felt that he couldn't show it off. In the end, the truth was finally revealed today. So the current situation, all three of them were shocked. Peng Shiren was shocked because he didn't know where Wang Ling came from. The monk was shocked because Wang Ling actually didn't know anything about his Dharma idol. And Wang Ling was shocked because it turned out that this Dharma idol, which he had always regarded as beneath him, was actually so strong. This person, what the hell is going on? Now, seeing Wang Ling's expression of sudden realization, as if he had just learned what the spirit of the universe was, Peng Shiren's face was full of panic and confusion, and the corners of his mouth twitched continuously. Was this the legendary powerhouse? So strong that he didn't even know how strong he was? Without further ado, when Wang Ling raised his hand at Peng Shiren, the black mole at the corner of his eye had already disappeared. He withdrew his Dharma idol of his own accord. The main thing was that he was worried that he would accidentally kill Peng Shiren. To deal with Peng Shiren, he didn't need to use the power of his Dharma idol. Seeing Wang Ling raise his arm at him, Peng Shiren was also terrified. "If I die, I'll definitely drag you down with me." Wang Ling actually still had a lot of things he wanted to ask Peng Shiren. He didn't have any intention of directly erasing him. Of course. He could do it whenever he wanted. "Maybe you're not afraid of me, but you can't protect everyone around you." At that moment, Peng Shiren stared at Wang Ling, his brain working at top speed as he prepared to shoot his mouth off. The monk knew that Peng Shiren was deliberately stalling for time. Very quickly, Peng Shiren's actions confirmed the monk's thoughts. "The outcome of my battle with you isn't the key." In the next moment, Peng Shiren's expression suddenly changed. Because he had obtained the Rubik's Cube. Just now, when he had been fighting with the monk, Peng Shiren had secretly sent a clone to Earth to take the Rubik's Cube away. Peng Shiren was secretly delighted. Because this heavenly Dao Rubik's Cube actually looked very new. As if it was brand new. The monk gritted his teeth. "Do you know what you're doing?" If you release that sealed person, you'll be doomed eternally. I know very well what I'm doing. Also, after this test, I have a deeper understanding of your and Wang Ling's strength. If I have the power of that sealed person and we join hands, we might be able to fight on equal footing. Or even overflow. Peng Shiren's lips curled up. Then, his figure started to fade. Seeing this, Wang Ling pretended to panic and hurriedly reached out to grab him. 5 fingers that blotted out the sky came crashing down. When they came down, Peng Shiren's entire body had already turned into particles of light, as if he had disintegrated. In this vast universe, Peng Shiren's last words were left behind. You're very strong, but you lack experience, and your reaction is really too slow. My figure can disappear under the starlight, and no one in the universe can catch me. See you next time. Then, Wang Ling withdrew his hand. The expression on his face was very calm. Jinren, you deliberately spared his life, and even pretended to have made a mistake so that you couldn't catch him. It looks like the fish has taken the bait. The monk bowed to Wang Ling. He couldn't help chuckling in his heart, thinking that Peng Shiren would lose sooner or later because he thought himself clever. Peng Shiren was crafty. When he had used the canon version of the Galaxy Fist earlier, Wang Ling had already noticed that Peng Shiren had sent a clone to Earth to steal the Rubik's Cube. Peng Shiren had predicted that Wang Ling and the monk would focus all their energy on the battle at hand and wouldn't care about anything else. In the end, they had successfully taken the Rubik's Cube away. But he hadn't expected Peng Shiren to bring it back as part of Wang Ling's plan. Wang Ling had predicted Peng Shiren's actions. Jinren, Peng Shiren is crafty. If we don't go after him right now, I'm afraid he'll notice that something has changed with the Rubik's Cube, the monk said at that moment on the side. Wang Ling nodded. Next, it was time to show off his acting skills. Peng Shiren claimed that no one in the universe could catch him. Wang Ling could only smile at this confidence. The reason why he hadn't set off right now wasn't because he really couldn't catch Peng Shiren. It was because he felt that Peng Shiren was slipping too slowly. So Peng Shiren deliberately ran first. Chapter 1437. At the same time, in Wang Ling's inner world, Lotus Sun looked around. Number 60 High School was like an isolated island in this huge world, and at first glance looked a little deserted. For some reason, the school had clearly been renovated and remodeled. Number 60 High School here still looked like an old school, with the dilapidated stone carvings at the main entrance and the old but still standing palm trees next to the teaching buildings. Everything gave off a very familiar feeling. The screen in the school square was playing the result of the fight between Wang Ling and Peng Shiren in real time. Sitting on a bench under a tree, the girl could see the big screen from this angle. When she saw Wang Ling, whose hair had been permed by Peng Shiren's fist, she couldn't help blushing a little. Suddenly, she had the sudden urge to rub Wang Ling's hair. Curly Hair's classmate Wang Ling was also very cute. Do you want to go in and take a look? Wang Ying asked. He had been with Lotus Sun the entire time, but this didn't affect Wang Ying's real body's battle in the Sword King world, because it was just a split body that was with Lotus Sunday, eh? Can I go in? Lotus Sun asked. Of course. Wang Ying nodded. Throughout the fight, she had been sitting obediently on the bench, staring fixedly at the various scenes on the screen. It was as if she was afraid of missing out on any details. Weren't you worried all this time whether Lord Ling could beat him? When the canon version of the Galaxy Fist hit him, I saw you so nervous that you clutched your skirt. Wang Ying couldn't help laughing. You should be relieved to see the current situation. Why don't you go in and take a look? How could I? Lotus Sun's face was boiling hot. Wang Ying couldn't help laughing at her immature reaction. Forget it, I won't tease you anymore. There's no point in teasing you, is far more interesting. Lotus Sun was curious. Why do you always? She resists and struggles, and the more she resists, the more excited I get. You're too gentle, not at all like so boring, Wang Ying replied. Although he was just a split body, there was no essential difference between the split body and the original body, and the thoughts in his head were the same. But that's not right. Why do you look like you know everything? You're clearly just shadows. Lotus Sun asked the question she had always wanted to ask. He was right. Wang Ying and Sun Yinger were essentially their shadows, but for some reason, Lotus Sun always felt that both of them were a little too mature. Those void creatures have lived for too long. She is the Lord of the Void, and all the void creatures share their memories. It's normal for her to become an old driver. What about you, CEO Ing? Didn't I absorb her ability? I didn't want it to be like this. Wang Ying shrugged. So you're blaming me? At this time, the girl looked at the teaching building in front of her. Is the layout inside the same as number 60 old schools? Why don't you go and take a look and you'll know? Wang Ying kept him guessing. Why was number 60 old school the only one left in the inner world? Actually, Wang Ying could guess it just by guessing. Wang Ling's conclusion was that he was lazy and couldn't be bothered to rebuild his model. If Immortal Jin Yuan, a construction maniac who was passionate about creating my world, was here, the core world would definitely be built to perfection. However, to Wang Ying, this conclusion was purely an excuse. There was no other way, his master was too dull. Sure enough, Ying was right, you're a bad guy. She got up and straightened her skirt and messy thoughts. Then, she looked at Wang Ying next to her and nodded. Then, let's go take a look. On the other side, Wang Ling reckoned that it was about time since Peng Shiren had escaped for some time. The other party was moving extremely fast, and had already put a distance of almost 10 billion light-years between them. Jinren, aren't you going to move? The monk asked on the side. To be honest, this was a little too far, and he felt that it would be a little difficult to catch up. At least, he probably wouldn't be able to. But after all, the person Peng Shiren was dealing with was Wang Ling, so the monk still had some expectations. And Wang Ling really didn't disappoint him. The youngster in front of him suddenly spread open his well-defined fingers and grabbed in one direction. At that moment, he was like an emissary who had unveiled the prelude to the universe. Brilliant light gathered in his palm, and an immortal aura emanated from it. The monk looked at this scene in astonishment. He was astonished when he saw the ball of light condensing in Wang Ling's palm. Primal chaos tribulation light, this was a natural phenomenon that occurred when the energy was too great and resonated with chaos. In essence, it was a self-defense mechanism in the universe. When the primal chaos tribulation light appeared, it would collide with something with too much energy and counteract it. But it was clear that the primal chaos tribulation light couldn't erase Wang Ling. Instead, the primal chaos tribulation light that had appeared was being toyed with by Wang Ling at this moment. He's actually using the naturally produced primal chaos tribulation light to build a tunnel that spans 10 billion light-years. The monk was extremely astonished. He hadn't expected such a miraculous operation to exist. Because under normal circumstances, ordinary spirit power couldn't complete a huge project like building a tunnel that spanned 10 billion light-years. But Wang Ling had actually used his own spirit power to stimulate the universe to produce a self-defense, primal chaos tribulation light, which he then used for his own purposes. It was all done in the blink of an eye. Wang Ling just raised his hand lightly, and the tunnel was already complete. Then, his figure moved, and he directly stepped into the tunnel ahead. Tyrant followed closely behind. He couldn't wait to see what was going to happen next. At that moment, Peng Shiren, who thought he had already escaped far away, was immensely pleased with himself. He estimated that he was already more than 10 billion light-years away, and his aura was perfectly concealed by the starlight. Whether it was Wang Ling or the monk, no matter how capable they were, it was impossible for them to find trouble with him. Now, he just needed to send back the Rubik's Cube in his hand, and his mission this time would be considered a success. But it wasn't that Peng Shiren didn't have his doubts. He felt that his mission this time had gone a little too smoothly. Could it be that the Rubik's Cube was a trick? Peng Shiren frowned and was about to take out the Rubik's Cube to take a closer look. But at that moment, he suddenly felt a great sense of oppression descend on him from behind. Turning his head, Peng Shiren's gaze met Wang Ling's dead fish eyes a light-year away. Peng Shiren couldn't help swearing on the spot. F***K. He can even chase me like this? Although he was utterly shocked by Wang Ling's pursuit, Peng Shiren felt a lot more at ease at this moment. Judging from the other party's relentless pursuit, there shouldn't be any problem with the Rubik's Cube, otherwise, why would it be chasing him so nervously? What a troublesome guy. Peng Shiren grit his teeth and sped up again. At the moment, he was roughly a light year away from Wang Ling. At that moment, Wang Ling's hand was also condensing starlight, inspired by Peng Shiren's galaxy fist. Jinren, you want to? The monk was stupefied as he could roughly guess what Wang Ling wanted to do. Right now, Wang Ling was using starlight to condense a large blade that was about a light year long. Chapter 1438. Ling Jinren, has he started creating new spells again? Following behind Wang Ling, the monk felt that the scene was a little familiar when he saw Wang Ling condensing starlight in one hand. He instantly knew that Wang Ling must have gotten some inspiration from Peng Shiren to come up with a brand new skill. The monk felt like he was just a bystander now, but even so, being able to quietly watch and learn from Wang Ling's side was already a huge gain for the monk. In the inn, Loopy Toad and Wang Ying stared at the scene in front of them, and Loopy Toad exclaimed repeatedly, "He created another new spell?" As expected of him, but what should this move be called? Star's Sword Technique, profound, light years, answered Wang Ying on the side. Why does it have such a Chinibyu name? The corner of Loopy Toad's eye twitched. I didn't come up with it. It was Battle Sect's commentary system, said Wang Ying. Battle Sect now had an internally developed sect app, and the Battle Sect commentary system was one of its functions. This was the commentary system Wang Ming had invented, which was an artificial intelligence AI based on Wang Ling's brain data. When it encountered a problem it couldn't understand, it could simulate Wang Ling's thinking and explain all kinds of Wang Ling's miraculous abilities in real time. Why is there such a thing? It's a newly developed app. Even among the core members, only a small number of people are qualified for internal testing, said Wang Ying. He took out his phone and put it in front of Loopy Toad. Sure enough, Loopy Toad saw a long list of information on the screen. Apart from the full name, this newly developed spell actually also had a short name. Loopy Toad felt that it was much better than the full name. Spell abbreviation, light years away, casting principle. By condensing a large amount of the power of starlight, a tangible weapon can be created. However, because the power of starlight is difficult to condense, this move can only be explained using the principles of Wang Ling's science, and cannot be explained using conventional cultivation science. Spellcaster's suggested level. Dear, here's my suggestion. It's best if it's at the max level. Casting difficulty, for Wang Ling, including Wang Ying, 1 star, for other people 10 stars. Note, when the difficulty reaches 10 stars, it's not recommended to learn this spell, because you won't be able to master it. Spell power, has destructive power. Magic advantage, comes with many passive skills. 1. Comes with a halo that repels the weak. It can accurately lock onto the enemy and only attack the target without harming the innocent. Earth no longer needs to be afraid. 2. 100% critical strike, and the critical strike damage stacks according to the number of light years formed. 1 light year equals 1 times the effect. 3. Unstoppable effect. The casting process cannot be interrupted by any means other than the caster cancelling it. During the casting process, a powerful starlight barrier would form around the caster to block all kinds of flying spells and tools. 4. Bachelor's Rage. This skill is a limited passive ability. It is only effective on 520 days. If the target is locked on, there will be an additional burning effect. Loopy Toad was stunned. It had to be said that this war sect commentary system was quite strong. Moreover, there was a hint of coquettishness in his forcefulness. It could only be said that as expected of software developed by Wang Ming. Wang Ying nodded. There's nothing particularly exaggerated about it. It's quite realistic. This light years away had a lot of advantages, but its disadvantage was that it was too difficult. It was likely that apart from the two of them, no one else in the world could do it. At that moment, Loopy Toad and Wang Ying could see the starlight condensing in Wang Ling's right hand as it swiftly extended forward at a speed invisible to the naked eye. The starlight sword which Wang Ling had condensed during the chase seemed to have fallen from the sky. Starlight radiated in all directions and densely covered in runes. It contained a terrifying power that could destroy everything. As the monk looked at the explanation in the war sect commentary system, he marveled at this method in his heart. Condensing starlight wasn't difficult for the monk himself. But the difficulty was that he couldn't gather the power of so much starlight in such a short period of time like Wang Ling could. Therefore, light years away itself was also a type of spell that could accumulate power. But the problem was that Wang Ling was accumulating power too quickly. Compared with Peng Shiren's Galaxy Fist, Wang Ling was who knew how many times faster. Peng Shiren was stupefied. Although he and Wang Ling were in the same universe, but it seemed like they weren't playing the same game. It felt like they were both clearly in Summoner's Canyon. Peng Shiren was playing a normal match, while Wang Ling was playing infinite firepower. Even the skill cooldowns were different. How the F***K was he supposed to play? As he moved swiftly, Peng Shiren felt the coldness on the back of his neck become more and more pronounced. Before Wang Ling's light years away had finished, it was as if that powerful aura had already turned into a knife against Wang Ling's neck. This wasn't good. It looked like the other party really wanted to kill him. Peng Shiren frowned deeply. He started to regret saying that he was invincible in the universe. Because he realized that Wang Ling's existence was King Bug. But when all was said and done, Wang Ling was Tao ancestor Wang's only disciple. It wasn't that Peng Shiren hadn't thought about how he could survive if his life was in danger. Thus, just as Wang Ling's starlight sword was about to pierce Peng Shiren practically gritted his teeth and took out something. An ancient stone? Wang Ling frowned when he noticed a round stone the size of a cabbage which emitted a black light. It had a smooth surface, and was glowing with a black light. He tried to peer into it with his king's eye, but it was blocked by the black light emitted by the round stone. He actually couldn't see what was inside. Wang Ling was astonished. This was something he had never seen before. His king's eye could be said to be capable of anything. Although there was still a lot of room for improvement. But in theory, there shouldn't be anything in this universe that the king's eye couldn't see through. At that moment, the king's eye's line of sight was actually blocked by the black light of this round ancient stone. Wang Ling's curiosity was piqued. Could it be that there was something in this ancient stone that could restrict his power? Wang Ling, I didn't want to take this out so easily. But if you insist on forcing me, don't blame me for being impolite. If you want to kill me, at worst we'll just die together. At that moment, Peng Shiren was manipulating the ancient stone. He held it high above his head with just one hand. The instant Wang Ling's starlight sword stabbed at it, the body of the sword was directly affected by the power of the ancient stone. As if it had been split into two by the sea, it evaded Peng Shiren and flew past him from both sides. Pooh! At that moment, Peng Shiren, who was holding the ancient stone high, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Wang Ling, ? He clearly hadn't stabbed Peng Shiren. How could this be a scam? No, Jinren, it's the stone. Monk Golden Lamp frowned as he analyzed on the side. He thought that the real reason Peng Shiren had spat out blood wasn't because of Wang Ling's light years away. Instead, it was purely because of this strange ancient stone's influence. This was also why Peng Shiren hadn't wanted to use it in the first place. There seemed to be something magical in the ancient stone, which was extremely harmful to the body, like the radiation of rare metals. Every second that Peng Shiren held the stone, hundreds of millions of cells in his body died. Interesting. Wang Ling stared at the round stone indifferently and cancelled the light years away spell. It wasn't because he was afraid, but because he was worried that he might accidentally damage the ancient stone. The ancient stone wasn't very big. Although there seemed to be something on it that could restrict Wang Ling's power, he wasn't using his full strength yet. If he got serious, it would be hard for Peng Shiren to resist even with the power of the ancient stone. After all, the stone itself was too small. Furthermore, the substance in the ancient stone that could restrict Wang Ling's power hadn't been purified, so it had a limited effect on his power. So what he was curious about now was, where on earth had Peng Shiren obtained this ancient stone? In this vast universe, were there any other stones of the same type that existed? Chapter 1439. Under the cover of the ancient stone, Peng Shiren quickly retreated. The ancient stone's radiation backlash was not light. His face was pale, and he felt like his kidney was hurting. When he held on to the ancient stone, billions of cells in his body died every second. It was just like those stinky tissues that he had used all those years ago that had returned to the trash can. Wang Ling didn't give chase. In any case, he hadn't intended to kill Peng Shiren from the beginning. Originally, this chase was only to dispel Peng Shiren's concerns about the magic cube. He never imagined that he would actually gain a new pleasant surprise. I didn't expect him to have such a divine item on him. However, even I don't know what it is. 9 out of 10, it's something from the infinite Milky Way. Monk Golden Lamp sighed with emotion. From Peng Shiren's experience of faking his death for so many years, Peng Shiren had always been hiding in the infinite Milky Way. He was much more familiar with the terrain there than Tyrant. There was an 80% to 90% chance that Peng Shiren had unearthed this mystical black stone in the infinite Milky Way. Even the power of the king's eye couldn't penetrate that circle of black light, so naturally, the monk's swastika seal couldn't see through it. However, the infinite galaxy was too big. Even if it was Wang Ling, it wouldn't be easy for him to pinpoint the source of this ancient stone when he knew nothing about it. Therefore, Peng Shiren had to stay alive. He might be the only person who knew the whereabouts of the ancient stone. In the depths of the boundless Milky Way, on a planet shrouded in darkness, Peng Shiren arrived in a sorry state with a pale face. The evil eyes hidden in the darkness suddenly opened when they sensed Peng Shiren's aura. "Are you injured?" Because the battle was too far away, the owner of the evil eye did not see what had happened. However, the fact that Peng Shiren was injured still made him slightly surprised. Because this was different from what he had expected. When he saw Peng Shiren again, he could clearly sense that Peng Shiren had aged a lot. This was a sign of aging caused by the death of too many cells. "It doesn't matter. I can use the starlight to heal myself." Peng Shiren took a few deep breaths. His entire body was shrouded in starlight. The blue spirit light seeped into his body through his pores, repairing the damaged cells in his body. His wrinkled skin gradually regained its youthful luster. "Looks like you used the power of that ancient stone. I underestimated the opponent's combat power. He's stronger than I thought. If we had made sufficient preparations, perhaps the outcome would have been different." Peng Shiren coughed twice. Come to think of it, it wasn't Wang Ling who had caused his injuries, but the backlash from this mysterious ancient stone. It was just an item that he had obtained by chance. Even he himself hadn't studied the origins of this ancient stone, but he didn't expect that it would save his life at a critical moment. The owner of the evil eye was silent for a moment. "It's best if you don't use this ancient stone carelessly. Otherwise, there's a risk of your realm regressing." "I know." Peng Shiren nodded. "But the operation this time was quite successful. I have successfully brought back the Rubik's Cube from Earth. I just don't know how the Sword King realm's attack is going." The Sword King world's attack was in truth a feint. Their true goal was to take the 9th magic cube. Just as you said, the enemy's combat strength is indeed stronger than we imagined. Just the peachwood sword from the Sword King realm was not easy to deal with. He has also accepted Leng Ming as his disciple. If we want to obtain this sacrificial offering, I'm afraid we'll have to wait until I'm unsealed before we can make preparations. The owner of the evil eye harumphed. To unlock the seal here, I need to collect at least 5 old Rubik's Cubes. Now, the Rubik's Cube has been assembled. Peng Shiren opened his hand and presented the last Rubik's Cube that he had just obtained from Earth. Then, the golden Rubik's Cube quickly sank into the dark planet in front of him. "All right. The owner of the evil eye nodded. A few seconds later, the owner of the evil eye said doubtfully, "Something's wrong." "What's wrong?" Peng Shiren was puzzled. "This isn't the old Rubik's Cube," said the evil eye's owner. "Isn't it because they look well maintained?" Peng Shiren was shocked. If this wasn't the old Rubik's Cube, then where did this Rubik's Cube come from? Definitely not. The owner of the evil eye said, "I have been dealing with this Tiandao Rubik's Cube for more than a day or two. I know the process of making the old Rubik's Cube very well." He was sure that it wasn't the taste inside. This Rubik's Cube was a new creation. It seems that someone created a new batch of Rubik's Cubes. A new creation, think about it. Right now, there are exactly 9 Rubik's Cubes in their hands and ours. If all 9 Rubik's Cubes were taken away, there would definitely be a riot in the universe's chaos. However, such a riot didn't happen. Therefore, the other party must have secretly replaced all these Rubik's Cubes with new ones. The owner of the evil eye said, from the beginning, their goal wasn't to snatch the Rubik's Cubes, but to replace them with new ones. Peng Shiren was shocked. They could actually create so many new Rubik's Cubes in such a short period of time? This Heavenly Tao Rubik's Cube wasn't F*King plasticine. The owner of the evil eye said, "If this 9th Rubik's Cube is new, then it means that the old one is already in their hands." Peng Shiren said, "But then, doesn't that mean that we're still missing one?" "It doesn't matter. That doesn't stop me from coming out." The owner of the evil eye chuckled. "Although I don't know what method the other party used to create these new Rubik's Cubes, what we can be sure of is that the seal Tao ancestor placed on me back then has already loosened. Although these new Rubik's Cubes can replace the old Rubik's Cubes and stabilize the chaos, the Tao ancestor didn't deliberately set up a restriction inside." "What do you mean?" "The other party made a mistake in their calculations. Furthermore, the spirit power stored in the new Rubik's Cube is stronger than that of the old one. Originally, I needed the power of at least 5 old Rubik's Cubes to loosen the seal, but now I just need to swallow this new Rubik's Cube." Elsewhere, after Wang Ling returned to Sword King World, the invasion of the Chaos Facehuggers had basically been dealt with. Wang Ying and Jingbai were organized and orderly, and had swept away all the invading creatures. Inside the inn, Wang Ling let Lotus Sun out of his inner world. He felt that Lotus Sun's face was a little red, and he wondered what on earth the girl had seen in his inner world. His inner world hadn't been built yet, and there was only number 60 high school, which was like an isolated island. Wang Ling didn't think there was anything to see. Classmate Wang Ling. At that moment, Lotus Sun plucked up her courage and took the initiative to call out to Wang Ling. She stepped forward and pressed down on his shoulder to stop him from moving. "It's the weekend. Do you want to go to Old Street with me?" Chapter 1440. Lotus Sun put her hand on Wang Ling's shoulder. She knew him too well, and was afraid that if she spoke halfway, he would find a loophole and run away. Thus, she mustered up her courage and chose to face him head-on. This resulted in the two of them being very close to each other. If there was a wall behind them and she stretched her hand back a little more, it would look like she was hammering Wang Ling against the wall. At that moment, the girl's thoughts ran wild, and her cheeks flushed red. She hurriedly let go of her hand and hid it behind her back. "Actually, we're just going to pick up some local customs. It's not just the two of us. I've also invited Super Chin, Hirogua, and Li Yuyue." She was too afraid that Wang Ling would refuse her, so she chose to take a step back. Actually, it was mainly for Wang Ling's sake. If everyone went together, it wouldn't be so awkward. Furthermore, even if it was a group activity, they should still be able to find some time to be alone. As for why she had chosen Super Chin, Hirogua, and Li Yuyue, this was naturally within her consideration. These 3 people might look like third wheels, but they still had good eyesight. The wait for Wang Ling's reply seemed very long. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that 10 or so seconds felt like years. Wang Ling actually really wanted to read the girl's mind and see what she had seen in his inner world. But later, He felt that this was a little like a peeping Tom and was very inappropriate, so he gave up on the idea. He looked fixedly at the girl. After hearing Lotus Sun's request, he was thinking about how to refuse. Unfortunately, Lotus Sun now knew too much about him. Ordinary reasons, such as not finishing his homework, being invited by someone else, or being sick, would never happen to him. While he was silent, Wang Ling heard Lotus Sun mention Super Chen, Hero Gua, and Li Yuyue. His heart suddenly relaxed quite a bit. It could be said that Lotus Sun's move had been very successful. She had accurately predicted Wang Ling's thoughts. For Wang Ling, it would indeed be easier for him to accept going out with only his acquaintances. Okay. Thus, looking at the expectant girl in front of him, Wang Ling nodded and agreed. There was only one ancient cultivation culture street in Songhai City, and there was also an old crispy noodle snack shop on it. Wang Ling felt that going there occasionally wasn't a bad idea. He actually agreed. Lotus Sun raised her head with an expression of pleasant surprise. She found that she was gradually beginning to understand how to deal with Wang Ling. When dealing with this kind of blockhead, being too hasty would only spoil things. As expected, it had to be done bit by bit. She suppressed the ecstasy in her heart and did her best not to make it too obvious. Then, classmate Wang Ling, let's meet at the school gate this weekend. Let's go together. Wang Ling looked at her with a helpless expression on his face. Thought steal was a passive skill. Although the small nano earplugs Wang Ming had developed had the ability to block out other people's thoughts, if they were too close, it was still very easy to hear voices. For example, right now, Wang Ling's head was filled with the girls' ha 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 laughter. Lotus Sun was laughing too loudly in her heart. He didn't know if it was because he was too excited. That night, in the final match of the Sword Arena, Lotus Sun instantly defeated Sword Spirit, who was in first place in the other group. Although this outcome was not unexpected, no one knew why this human girl would end the battle so quickly as if she had been injected with chicken blood. The reason was very simple. Because of the weekend trip to the old street, Lotus Sun actually hadn't informed Super Chen, Hero Gua, and Li Yuyue yet. She was waiting to go back to Earth to lay out a battle plan. When she got home that night, Lotus Sun looked for Li Yuyue first. What? Go to the old street together? With Super Chen, Hero Gua, and Wang Ling? Li Yuyue was dazed for a few seconds when she heard Lotus Sun's invitation. At first, she didn't understand why this girl insisted on bringing the three of them along. But very quickly, Li Yuyue reacted. I get it. You're afraid that you'll be rejected if you ask Wang Ling out alone, right? That's why you invited us. You know too much. Lotus Sun smiled bitterly. You clearly don't have a boyfriend, how can you know so much? Yes. Just watch a few more romance dramas. You'll always be able to come up with a plan. Li Yuyue smiled. Don't worry, I'll help send Super Chen and Hero Guo away after we get there and create opportunities for you. Thank you so much. Lotus Sun sighed. She regretted not getting to know Li Yuyue earlier last semester. If it wasn't for the National Body Technique competition on 9 Dragon Mountain this time, she would have almost missed this godly assist. One down. After contacting Li Yuyue, Lotus Sun contacted Super Chen and Hero Gua. After waiting for 10 minutes or so, no one replied. She looked at the time. It was now 10:00 in the evening. Based on their habits, this should be the time for them to play games. What now? Should we ask them tomorrow? Sun Yinger was very curious about what Lotus Sun would do. No. Lotus Sun shook her head. As the saying went, plans couldn't keep up with changes. Setting a time early was better than anything else. I remember that the game they've been playing recently is called Public Connection. Lotus Sun suddenly remembered. This was the game that Super Chen and Hero Gua had been enjoying these days. Every day in class, they would secretly hang out, and Old Pan had almost confiscated their phones several times. Lotus Sun defined it as a large-scale game to collect and raise beautiful girls. There was no other way. At that moment, Lotus Sun sighed. I'll have to go snipe them myself. You don't know which server they're on, Sun Yinger said. I don't need to know, just take first place in all of them. Lotus Sun had a kind look in her eyes. It only took about half an hour. Lotus Sun took first place on a total of 68 servers. She had asked Jiang Xiaoche to take back most of the accounts. Sun Yinger was stupefied. Her family's Rongrong was a proper money user. Sure enough, after this, Super Chen and Hero Gua immediately responded. They saw the three-person group chat that Lotus Sun had set up, and then sent screenshots of the ranking to her one after another, asking her for details. Lotus Sun, is the number 1 ID called the leader of the Grey Sect yours? Yes, Lotus Sun replied. You two aren't replying to my messages, so I can only look for you in the game. But you took first place on all 68 servers. Super Chen and Hero Guo were stupefied. Because I don't know where you are. It's too troublesome to ask one by one. So, in order for us to accompany you and Lingzi to Old Street this weekend, if you agree, all 68 servers will belong to you. Half is just right. Ha! Do you think we're the kind of people who sell our souls for money? That's right. We are. Then, see you this weekend. Actually, there's one more thing, Lotus Sun said at that moment. Don't worry, we both understand. Super Chen chuckled. It's just creating opportunities. We'll definitely listen to Boss Sun's arrangements. Also, I have coupons for hotels here, if you need them. No need. Lotus Sun immediately refused. She felt that Super Chen was thinking too much. This was only the beginning. And even if they went, they didn't need coupons. In any case, the hotels on Old Street were all owned by her family. But at the same time, the girl was actually a little curious about what would really happen this weekend. After all, Super Chen's blessed mouth was a little scary. Chapter 1441. With everything ready, the next thing Lotus Sun had to do that night was naturally to choose a set of decent clothes suitable for a weekend outing. Sun Yinger saw that there were already a lot of styles in the girl's wardrobe, many of which were global limited editions created by famous designers. She was a little puzzled by Lotus Sun's choice of clothes in the shop in the middle of the night. Sun Yinger now understood why every time a good-looking new skin was released for a character in a game, a bunch of people would throw everything they had to buy it. Sure enough, inspiration came from life. The benefits of installing a skin function in a game were indeed huge. A game developer might only spend a few thousand yuan to design a skin, and after it was put on sale at 5 yuan, it could sell hundreds of millions of copies. The most important thing was that everyone who bought the skin felt that it was worth the money. It was simply too real. Rongrong, you already have so many clothes. Any one of them will be dazzling on the street. Sun Yinger said helplessly as she sat next to Lotus Sun and looked at the girl who was picking out clothes. These clothes are too eye-catching. Classmate Wang Ling probably won't like them, so it's better to buy some new ones, Lotus Sun replied. The clothes she had picked out this time were all from small brands. Although they weren't as famous as the ones in her wardrobe, given the current situation, it was fine as long as they looked good. Sun Yinger pursed her lips. She didn't know if she should complain in her heart. In any case, Super Chen and the others would be going with her. Wouldn't it be fine if everyone wore school uniforms? So, this was purely an excuse for her to buy new clothes. Women. Sun Yinger curled her lips slightly and sneered in her heart, her eyes showing that she had seen through everything. Lotus Sun's trip was in fact a big deal for Huaguo Water Curtain Group. After the Shadow Stream incident last time, the old man naturally paid more attention to protecting his precious granddaughter. Buying a lot of new clothes before each trip was actually a very important signal. Old Man Sun very quickly became aware of her travel plan, and called Jiang Xiaoche that very night. It seems that Rongrong is going out. Do you know where she's going? Eldest miss, did she buy new clothes again? That's right. Old Man Sun nodded. But this time, I still don't know where she wants to go. That's strange. Jiang Xiaoqi frowned. In the past, First Miss would always report in advance when she went out. Maybe Rongrong doesn't want to be too high profile this time. After all, there are a lot of security personnel and cars accompanying her every time she goes out. I've been thinking about it recently, and it does feel a little like swaggering through the city. It's like directly telling those who are plotting against Rongrong that Rongrong is traveling and that they should quickly come and assassinate him, Sun Yiyuan said. In fact, during this period of time, Old Man Sun had indeed been reflecting on his past actions. After all, there were still a lot of people who hated the rich these days. It was easy for some people to attract hatred if they were too high profile. He suddenly felt that Wang Ling's low profile actually had its benefits. So here's the problem. In the past, his granddaughter would always report to him before she went out, and he would also prepare all kinds of security measures in advance. But now, Rong was refusing to talk about her trip. Did that mean that she wanted to keep a low profile for this trip? After deducing this, Old Man Sun suddenly felt enlightened. So that's how it is. What did Old Man Sun think of? I'm guessing that Rongrong might ask classmate Wang Ling out on a date, Old Man Sun said. Jiang Xiaoqi was silent, and instantly felt his mood turn sour. It was this guy again. He didn't know what on earth was so good about this Wang Ling. Young Miss actually liked him so much. If Wang Ling could hear Old Man Sun's words at that moment, he would definitely sigh with emotion. It was rare for this old man's deduction to hit the nail on the head. It really wasn't easy. That was the part where he deduced. Everything sounded reasonable. But with the Sun family's inherited imagination, if he continued deducing, it was 100% certain that he would go astray. Thus, after receiving Sun Yiyuan's deduction, Jiang Xiaoqi spent about 20 minutes investigating this matter. Very quickly, he had an idea. Old man, I found it. Young Miss is indeed going out on a trip. She's going to the Cultivation Cultural Street. But it's not just classmate Wang Ling. There are also 3 other students from number 60 high school, Jiang Xiaoqi replied over the phone. In fact, it wasn't too difficult to get this information. Because young Miss had done something very strange before, and that was to ask him to help her recover 68 number 1 game accounts in the entire server. At that time, Jiang Xiaoqi had been cautious. Because this type of game absolutely wasn't Lotus Sun's cup of tea, then, he had followed the clues and traced it back to Super Chen and Hero Gua. After receiving some benefits from Jiang Xiaoqi, these 2 unscrupulous guys had straightaway confessed everything. Cultivation Cultural Street? When Old Man Sun heard this place, he was instantly lost in his memories. Sun Yiyuan's impression of this ancient street was that it was filled with a rustic and artistic atmosphere. With one look, he could tell that it was a place chosen by a low-key person like classmate Wang Ling. The old man remembered that he had also come to a place like this with his first love back then, and instantly felt that Wang Ling was very much like his younger self, as expected of classmate Wang Ling. Even the place he had chosen to meet was so similar to his own. But old man, if young Miss and that Wang Ling are going on a date, why are there 3 other people as well? On the other end of the phone, Jiang Xiaoqi heard Old Man Sun sigh with emotion, and instantly knew that the old man was most likely lost in his own narcissism again. He couldn't help wiping his sweat as he asked this question. These words interrupted Old Man Sun's train of thought. Although he still wasn't very clear about the ins and outs of the matter, the old man was still able to rely on his strong reasoning skills to understand everything. There's only one truth. Old Man Sun said. The Cultivation Cultural Street is a priority for people of the arts and literature, and this trip was most likely classmate Wang Ling's decision. The reason why he also invited the other 3 students must be because he wanted to ease the awkwardness of the trip. Also, if everyone goes out in a group, they can take care of each other to a certain extent and avoid danger. Old Man Sun sighed and nodded in satisfaction. As expected of classmate Wang Ling, he's actually so thoughtful. In order to add Jiang Yingying's WeChat ID, he couldn't find a suitable reason, causing him to waste hundreds of alternate WeChat accounts. However, everything was different now. I have information on Wang Ling. Do you want to know? Jiang Xiaoqi sent a friend request to Jiang Yingying. This time, Jiang Yingying approved his request almost immediately. Although he had successfully added her as a friend on WeChat, Jiang Xiaoqi still felt that something was wrong. He had failed so many times, but in the end, Wang Ling had passed. It was too hard for him. Jiang Yingying was actually very gloomy. Lotus Sun becoming the leader of the Grey sect was like a fishbone stuck in her throat, and she didn't know what to do. She wasn't the eldest daughter of a rich family, and especially not Marshal Zhang's granddaughter, so she had to pay more attention to her words and actions as well as her daily expenses. Otherwise, it was very likely that she would cause trouble for her grandfather. Jiang Yingying had always been used to dealing with matters of the heart on her own. Before transferring to number 60 high, she had already predicted that Lotus Sun might be her biggest opponent. But now, Jiang Yingying realized a problem. Compared with this eldest daughter, her status wasn't high enough. Without anyone else to help her, it would be very difficult for her to fight Lotus Sun. Jiang Yingying had originally planned to become the leader of the Grey sect, and then use his influence to learn more about Lotus Sun, before finally taking action to deal with her. Unfortunately, it seemed that Lotus Sun had predicted this, and had used money to secure the position of leader of the Grey sect. Jiang Yingying had been defeated in the first round of confrontation. Thus, Jiang Yingying was now in a predicament. Now that she had just arrived at number 60 high and was unfamiliar with the place and the people, it was really too difficult for her to carry out her next plan. Jiang Yingying had originally planned to have Yi Jiang accompany her to number 60 high after he recovered. However, Yi Jiang was still in a semi-autistic state. Although his condition was slightly better than before, he still hadn't completely returned to normal. So when it came down to it, Jiang Yingying realized that she had been too impatient. If Brother Yi was here, it would probably be a lot better. Jiang Yingying lay on her stomach on the bed, her slender legs flapping up and down. She was scratching her head in distress when her phone vibrated. The ID showed that a man called Archer was trying to add her as a friend. The truth was that Jiang Yingying had been feeling harassed recently, as a large number of strange men tried to add her almost every day. Almost out of habit, Jiang Yingying was about to reject the request and blacklist her. But at that moment, a comment about Wang Ling caught her attention. You are? Jiang Yingying was curious. After some thought, she agreed to the other party's request. Actually, I'm one of eldest Miss Lotus Sun's pursuers. Jiang Xiaoqi sent a mysterious message. I know. Classmate Jiang, you have a good impression of that classmate Wang Ling, right? I just admire his literary talent, don't talk nonsense. The moment Jiang Yingying saw the message, her cheeks instantly turned red. Since that's the case, we can work together. Because our goals are the same. Jiang Xiaoqi directly typed. It's like this, I received a piece of information. This weekend, Wang Ling, Lotus Sun and the 3/3 wheels will go to the ancient cultivation cultural street. I know that place. Jiang Yingying quickly replied. As a cultured girl, Jiang Yingying always had a different experience every time she went to that ancient street. At the same time, she was very familiar with the layout of that ancient street, because she had already been there more than once. She had saved up quite a few coupons for the food circles there. Are you sure this information is reliable? But out of caution, Jiang Yingying still asked dubiously. It's 100% reliable. If you don't believe me, you can go to school tomorrow and check it out with either Hero Guo or Super Chen, those 2/3 wheels. They're that Wang Ling's best buddies, said Jiang Xiaoqi. Alright, if it's true, I agree to work together. Jiang Yingying nodded. Actually, at this point in the conversation, Jiang Yingying already knew that it was most likely true. Jiang Yingying had a deep impression of Super Chen and Hero Guo. She still remembered that in the canteen, that person called Super Chen had directly declared that he was Wang Ling's best buddy. If this person called Archer was just a bored swindler, there was no way he would know so much. So, what do you want me to do? Jiang Yingying asked at that moment. The first step is to disguise ourselves and enter the ancient street together, said Jiang Xiaoqi. How do we disguise ourselves? Of course we pretend to be boyfriend and girlfriend. Chapter 1443. As soon as Jiang Xiaoqi said this, Jiang Yingying instantly became extremely vigilant. For some reason, she suddenly felt like she had been tricked. Can't we be siblings? Jiang Yingying asked tentatively. She really couldn't accept pretending to be boyfriend and girlfriend. She had already given her heart to classmate Wang Ling. Cultivation Culture Ancient Street is a holy land for artistic couples. How can siblings go there? Performing orthopedics? Jiang Xiaoqi said with a smile as he sent the message. He found this girl Jiang Yingying more and more interesting. As expected of the girl he loved the most after Lotus Sun, then, Jiang Yingying typed a string of words, which almost made Jiang Xiaoqi choke. But, does this count as cheating? You're not with that Wang Ling right now, how is this considered cheating? Jiang Xiaoqi replied quickly. At the same time, he face-bombed. He marveled at the girl's brain on the other end of WeChat. Classmate Jiang Yingying, think about it this way. If this succeeds, you might be promoted. Jiang Xiaoqi tried his best to instigate her. Of course, it's normal for you to have misgivings about being boyfriend and girlfriend. At worst, we can set some rules. During this period of pretending to be boyfriend and girlfriend, apart from holding hands and hugging, we won't cross the line. How about that? And we have to hold hands and hug. Of course. This is pretending to be a couple. Holding hands and hugging are the bare minimum, right? Otherwise, wouldn't it be too fake if other people saw through us? Jiang Xiaoqi felt that this was the fastest he had ever typed in his life. Just think of it as doing it for Wang Ling, and I'm doing it for Rongrong. In order to obtain happiness, it's actually not a loss to make a sacrifice first. What's the saying again? If I don't go to the ground, who will? It could only be said that Jiang Xiaoqi was indeed Jiang Xiaoqi. As the Chief Secretary General of Huaguo Water Curtain Group and a senior employee who was highly regarded by Old Man Sun, Jiang Xiaoqi's ability to bluff people was nothing to scoff at. A series of verbal cannons immediately bombarded Jiang Yingying with cuts and bruises. Fine. I agree. In the end, Jiang Yingying mustered up her courage and agreed to Jiang Xiaoqi's conditions. Alright, do you have time tonight? I'll treat you to a meal. Jiang Xiaoqi couldn't help but smile through the phone screen. You want to treat me to a meal? Of course, pretending to be a couple on the weekend is a big plan. Since we still have time now, why don't we familiarize ourselves with each other first? Jiang Xiaoqi said. After dinner, I'll take you shopping. After all, this is our first time pretending to be a couple. Neither of us have any experience. Moreover, if we go to the old street, we need to buy some clothes for you. Take it as a greeting gift. Jiang Xiaoqi said calmly. Jiang Yingying was aghast. This man called Archer seemed to be a little too generous. However, it should be a good thing to have such a rich teammate. At least for now, that was how Jiang Yingying felt. Jiang Xiaoqi's wealth and intelligence network were things that Jiang Yingying didn't have right now. Without these two factors, she wouldn't have enough power to resist Lotus Sunday. Just as she was at her wit's end, Jiang Xiaoqi appeared. He was like a savior sent by the heavens to save him. So, Archer, what exactly do you do? Jiang Yingying was curious about Archer's true identity. Actually, I'm a private detective, Jiang Xiaoqi said. Although it was just nonsense, Jiang Xiaoqi felt that his professional identity was reasonable. After all, he had been with Old Master Sun for so many years. The stock market and some other things were all based on his superb reasoning ability. Combined with Old Master Sun's words, he was able to do things perfectly. A detective. Jiang Yingying was a little surprised by this answer. Since he was a detective, he had to have a smart mind and a strong reasoning ability. To put it bluntly, a detective was someone who had a certain amount of experience and accumulated knowledge. As someone who pursued literature, Jiang Yingying's impression of Jiang Shaoqi instantly improved when she thought of his professional identity as a detective. This could be considered a rare stroke of luck for Jiang Shaoqi. Thursday, December 10th. When Wang Ling passed the school gate, he saw Death Heavenly Dao chatting with the old man with pancake. With the monk's help, Death Heavenly Dao had successfully become the school guard captain at number 60 high school, and had now successfully become familiar with the old man at the gate. This old man with pancake had been at the school gate for many years. He was a pitiful man who had borrowed money from loan sharks to raise money for his wife's medical expenses. Then, because of the loan shark's violent collection, his wife's condition had rapidly deteriorated. The old man had already paid off his debt over the years, and repaid evil with good. Every day, he would give away half of his income to those who needed help. This was an old story in number 60 high school. It wasn't a secret. Death Heavenly Dao had learned about it not long after he took office. Thus, this morning, the old man had heard that the loan sharks who had violently collected money from him had exploded due to a gas leak. Coincidentally, it had also directly blown up the big guy who had come to violently collect money from him. "Grandpa, is there anyone else you don't like? Just tell me directly," Death Heavenly Dao said as he ate his pancake. The old man wiped at his sweat. No, even if there was, he wouldn't dare say it. That was too scary, but he felt that it was most likely a coincidence. After all, his situation wasn't a secret, and everyone knew about it. Furthermore, the gas leak had been an accident, and the police had already verified it, so there was no mistake. "Thank you for your concern, little Wang." The old man spread out the pancake, his face full of helplessness. He knew that the name on this young man's ID card was Death Wang. It was just that he hadn't expected it to actually be so uncanny that he had died with the Grim Reaper. "Grandpa, you're too kind. I just went back last night and made a little stick. I didn't expect something to really happen." Death Heavenly Dao laughed. Seeing that the two of them were chatting, Wang Ling took the initiative to walk over. For some reason, he also felt like eating pancakes today. Seeing that it was Wang Ling, the old man instantly spread out the pancake familiarly. "Good morning, classmate Wang. Let's go with the old rules, 2 eggs with crispy noodle crumbs." This was Wang Ling's unique way of eating, and the old man was especially willing to make it for him. Because this way of eating was quite popular now. Generally, pancakes were filled with fried dough sticks, crispy biscuits, and the like, but crispy noodle crumbs added a different kind of crispness to the pancake. Wang Ling was waiting for the pancake. At that moment, he saw a purple-eyed girl with long black hair get out of a black car. Her close-fitting black stockings and gothic dress were particularly eye-catching. "Is this way of eating good?" "Then, Grandpa, please make me the same," the purple-eyed girl said with a cold expression. Wang Ling didn't look sideways, but out of the corner of his eye, he saw the conspicuous logo on the black car. That was the Zhegong family's logo. Chapter 1444. The symbol of the Zhegong family was a crow with an amethyst eye, which Wang Ling speculated might have something to do with the purple eyes that the Zhegong family inherited. Yin-yang eyes. Wang Ling sized up Zhegong's purple eyes out of the corner of his eye and instantly knew where they came from. This was a very rare type of eye. After all, this was Zhegong, who had made her name by exorcising demons and suppressing evil. This was simply a gift from the ancestral master. Wang Ling sighed in his heart. If only he could use his own abilities to make money. Unfortunately, the family rules were strict. This was the first time Wang Ling and Zhegong had met. But intuitively, Wang Ling felt that Zhegong wasn't a bad person. After all, foreigners who could accept the setting of crispy noodle snacks in crispy pancakes were actually quite rare. Zhegong stopped in front of the fruit jianbing stall, and behind her stood a female bodyguard in a suit and sunglasses. The female bodyguard, who had tattoos of the Zhegong family on her ankles and wrists, was looking worriedly at the fruit jianbing stall in front of her. "Miss, the food at this roadside stall isn't hygienic," Humph. You won't get sick if you eat it. Back off. Jogong gave the female bodyguard a cold look, and with one look, she obediently stepped back. The dignified eldest daughter of the Jogong family indeed had a strong aura. Wang Ling immediately thought of Lotus Sundae and realized the difference between the two. Although they were both eldest daughters, Lotus Sun had taken the route of being close to the people and had aimed to attract their attention. Jogong, on the other hand, was different. She was an ice beauty with a strong aura that made people flinch. The old man didn't dare speak or ask, and just wanted to concentrate on making the jianbing in his hands. He didn't recognize this girl called Jogong, but he knew that she was an eldest daughter with a strong aura. With her standing here, the other students didn't dare approach her easily. Since this was the first time he was doing business with this girl, the old man hesitated when he was putting in the paint. Miss, do you want chili? Insanely spicy. Then do you want coriander? No. Okay, then, the old man flipped the bottom of the jianbing with a spatula and poured the crispy noodle snacks he had prepared on it. Finally, he rolled the entire jianbing, wrapped it in oil-absorbing paper, and put a disposable plastic bag over it before handing it to Jogong with both hands. Miss, be careful, it's hot. The entire process took less than a minute. A minute of Chinese cuisine? Interesting. Jogong carefully took it and stared at the pancake in her hand, lost in thought, and then took a tentative bite. The wonderful texture instantly invaded Jogong's taste buds, causing her purple eyes to flash with a flash of light. How's the taste? Death Heavenly Axiom, who was wearing a school guard uniform, looked at Jogong. That's it. It's not as good as the octopus balls downstairs. Jogong commented coldly before taking another big bite. Uncle Jianbing, Wang Ling and Death Heavenly Dao, could it be that she was a tsundere? His mouth said it didn't taste good, but his body was very honest. My bodyguard is right. Your stall is too small, and the plates are dirty. It's not very hygienic. Sorry for the trouble. The old man bowed helplessly. Contentedly eating the pancake in her hand, Ryoko Kwamiya snorted at the old man. I just want to try something new, I won't buy it a second time. Then, she strolled slowly through the gate of number 60 high school. Like Jiang Yingyin yesterday, she was here to register for the school today. Wang Ling chewed on his pancake as he walked unhurriedly behind Jogong. As they approached the school building, Wang Ling heard Ryoko whisper to the female bodyguard next to her, "You, change into casual clothes and go to that pancake stall again." Yes, Mississippi, the female bodyguard understood. Are you going to smash it? I'll do it right away. Smash what? Jogong panicked and almost shouted, I'm asking you to buy me another 20. When you wear casual clothes, remember to cover up your tattoo, so you don't scare people. So, this is compensation? The female bodyguard smiled bitterly. She realized. This was her family's young miss compensating the old man just now. After all, when buying pancakes, a lot of the other students didn't dare approach him, and they interfered with his business. Heh, compensation? Do you really think I'm doing charity? This is charity, charity. Ryoko Kwamiya emphasized in a low voice. Yes, miss, you're right. Also, when the old man is done with his business, go and arrange a shop for him at the entrance of the school. I'll pay for it from my account. Jogong nibbled on the pancake in her hand, her expression expressionless, but the delicious blush on her cheeks hadn't faded. Miss, it's too dirty, I'm cleaning up the city. After saying that, Ryoko Kwamiya snorted softly and walked toward the headmaster's office. Wang Ling watched Ryoko Kwamiya leave, and at the same time, he deeply admired his own, crispy noodle snacks judgment rules. Sure enough, his guess had been right. People who like to eat crispy noodle snacks couldn't be that bad. Ryoko Kwamiya wasn't a bad person, but with this kind of personality, it would be easy for others to offend her if they didn't understand her. At that moment, Wang Ling finished the last bite of his pancake and habitually licked his fingers as he thought to himself. Come to think of it, there really had been a lot of transfer students recently. Yesterday it was Jiang Yingying, and today it was Ryoko Kwamiya. But it looked like Kyuya Ryoko wasn't after him, which made him instantly feel a lot more at ease. Headmaster Chen and Audjua had already been waiting in the headmaster's office for a long time. The Ryoko family settling in number 60 high was a big deal. As headmaster, Headmaster Chen was naturally happy. This way, number 60 high would be in line with international standards. In the future, they could even use the Ryoko family's influence on Sun Island to carry out student exchange activities. This was the day that Ryoko Kwamiya would register at number 60 high, and Headmaster Chen would personally welcome her. It was just that Ryoko Kwamiya had requested that Audjua receive her. At that moment, sensing Ryoko Kwamiya's aura approaching, Headmaster Chen patted Audjua on the shoulder. "Brother Jua, I'll leave the rest to you. I'll excuse myself for a bit." "Don't worry, Lord Headmaster." Audjua smiled politely, and then saw Headmaster Chen open a cabinet on the side and enter it. He made a bye-bye gesture at Audjua, then swiftly disappeared. Audjua sucked in a cold breath. He had actually set up a transmission array in a cabinet. That was quite sophisticated. As soon as Headmaster Chen left, Ryoko Kwamiya opened the door and walked in alone. She hadn't brought any other bodyguards with her. The only one who had followed her earlier had been sent to buy pancakes and fruit pancakes, and Ryoko had deliberately sent him away. As soon as she entered, Ryoko saw Audjua and walked over with a smile on her face. "Hello, classmate Ryoko, I'm Audjua." Unexpectedly, Ryoko slapped Audjua's hand away with a paw, no need for a handshake. Audjua didn't know what on earth had happened to cause Ryoko Kwamiya to look angry. At that moment, the girl glanced at the sofa on the side, and directly sat down as if she were the host. "How have I offended classmate Ryoko?" Audjua was still puzzled. "Don't misunderstand, Mr. Jua. You didn't offend me." At that moment, Ryoko stared at Audjua. But the entire Ryoko family. Audjua was blank. "Are you still playing dumb, Mr. Swindler?" Ryoko Kwamiya smiled mysteriously. Chapter 1445. Audjua hadn't expected Jogong Ryoko to transfer to number 60 high school because of him. And he had actually offended the entire Jogong family? Audjua found this a little inconceivable. In fact, there had always been doubts about the large-scale disaster that had suddenly descended on the gate between worlds 6 years ago, and this wasn't the first time that Audjua had faced such doubts. As Wang Ling's number 1 disciple and scapegoat, Audjua's mental fortitude had long since been tempered to the point that he could even fool a lie-detecting magic treasure. Thus, in the face of Jogong's questioning, Audjua just smiled, his heart as calm as an ancient well. He skillfully operated the tea set on the headmaster's table, made a cup of tea for Jogong, and handed it to her. "I don't know why classmate Jogong says that, but what happened 6 years ago should have long since been settled." Sniffing the fragrance of the tea and the hot water, Jogong Ryoko's anger when she saw Audjua suddenly seemed to ease a lot. "Heh, who wants to drink tea made by a liar like you?" Although she said so, she still reached out to take the teacup. "Classmate Jogong, you need evidence for everything. I don't know why the Jogong family hates me so much, but if there's any misunderstanding, I think it's better to clear things up as soon as possible," said Audjua. He sat down opposite Jogong, and at the same time, observed her expression. She was an ice beauty, and her expression didn't change in the slightest. Emotions didn't show directly on her face. Audjua was a little familiar with this feeling. After all, his Shifu was also this kind of person. "Liar, do you really think I don't have evidence?" Jogong Ryoko sipped her tea and gazed at Audjua with her purple eyes. "Although the incident happened a long time ago, our Jogong family has put in a lot of effort. We did indeed find a witness at the scene. Furthermore, this witness said that the person who defeated the Demon King was a boy with dead fish eyes." Speaking of this, Jogong Ryoko paused. Speaking of dead fish eyes, she remembered that she seemed to have seen a dead fish eye not long ago. But for some reason, there was a lack of memory in her mind, and she couldn't recall it. But this wasn't the point. The point was that she had come to Huaxiao Nation this time and chosen number 60 high school. She had come for Audiobook from the beginning. One reason was to expose this swindler, and the other was to use this topic to expand the Jiugong family's market in Huaxiao Nation. You mean, a witness? Audiobook was slightly taken aback. The scene at that time was too messy. There was dust and smoke from collapsed buildings everywhere, as well as thick smoke from all kinds of explosions. He had saved a lot of people in the beginning with the team, and had already confirmed that the core area where Loopy Toad had landed had already been evacuated, and there wouldn't be a third person there. So, where did this witness come from? Ryoko Kamiya did not keep him in suspense. Instead, she took out that evidence that she had prepared in advance from her small bag. It was a photo, and what shocked Audiobook was that it was actually a GIF. Can GIFs be printed now? Audiobook stared at the photo in disbelief. This is a digital camera photo seal, and the person sealed in this photo is the witness of our Kyuya family, Kyuya Ryoko said. Audiobook stared at the photo. He saw a little girl in a light yellow dress. She was only about 5 or 6 years old, and she was knitting a sweater in the photo. A day ghost? Audiobook stared at the photo for a few seconds before finally picking up on the clues. He hadn't expected the witness that Ryoko Kamiya was talking about to be a day ghost. You don't look so useless. Ryoko wasn't surprised that Audiobook could tell, but to be able to directly identify the type of ghost based on a sealed photo, he definitely had to have the vision of an expert. Their Jiugong family had been responsible for exorcising demons for generations. Although Jiugong still hated this swindler Audiobook, it had to be said that he was much better than her disappointing brothers. This instantly made Ryoko feel a little humiliated and angry, and she said to Audiobook, but for a swindler like you who habitually hogs glory, you should also have some special knowledge in the area of exorcism. Audiobook, it's just the words of a 5 or 6-year-old girl, how can classmate Jiugong believe it? Audiobook smiled calmly. She said that the one who defeated the Demon King was a boy. How old was the boy at that time? 10 years old, Ryoko Kamiya answered. 10 years old. No matter how talented a cultivator is, at this age, he would at best be a golden core cultivator. A golden core cultivator can defeat a demon king? Audiobook laughed. Weren't you also a golden core cultivator at that time? Ryoko asked. As I said, the monster king was already very weak after a series of attacks, so I only went to give him the final blow. Audiobook retorted, I've already clarified this with a lot of the media. As for the media's increasingly ridiculous claims about the 10,000 miles parting air sword, those are indeed exaggerated. However, Ryoko Kamiya didn't buy Audiobook's explanation. You're just trying to flatter me, that's all. Kamiya Ryoko snorted. Also, let me tell you, the day-wandering ghost girl in this photo looks like she's only 5 or 6 years old. But that was because she was at that age when she died. That was why his appearance was fixed. Little Yellow appeared in that area 30 years ago, which is to say that she actually has the mind of an adult. I know what you want to say, Audiobook replied. Classmate Kamiya wants to say that this day-wandering ghost's words are in fact legally binding, right? Yes, liar. Ryoko Kamiya's lips curled up. So, are you panicking? No. Audiobook shrugged indifferently. I know that a day-wandering ghost's words alone are far from enough. So I have to find the boy who was seen by this day-wandering ghost back then. At that moment, Ryoko Kamiya got up and abruptly took a step forward. Her purple eyes fixed on Audiobook, and the two of them almost instantly closed the distance between them. Ryoko Kamiya, according to our Kamiya family speculation, you have repeatedly performed miraculous feats in recent years. In recent years, you've performed miraculous feats again and again. A lot of things may seem irrelevant, but they are in fact closely related to number 60 high. So we have reason to suspect that the boy might be studying at number 60 high. They were too close, and from this angle, they just happened to be facing each other. Audiobook tilted his head slightly and pretended that he hadn't seen anything. Classmate Kamiya, you're too close. Ryoko Kamiya hurriedly got up and covered herself. You pervert. Audra was instantly unconvinced. But I still have to be able to see him. Classmate Kamiya, you don't have any, how can I be considered a pervert? Hearing this, Ryoko Kamiya took a deep breath and tried to calm herself down. She then quickly opened the office door and prepared to leave. She only left Audra with her cold back. Wait for me, Audra, we'll see. I'll handle the registration procedures for classmate Kamiya. Have a safe trip. Audra smiled and nodded. Bang! Then, the office door was instantly shut. Seeing that Ryoko Kamiya was gone, Audra heaved a sigh of relief. This young miss from a foreign country. She was a little tricky. At that moment, Audra glanced at the ring on his thumb. This ring was one of the magic weapons Wang Ling had given him. It was called the fake heart ring, also known as the substitute heart ring. As the name implied, it was a ring that could replace a heart with a space. The heart in Audre's body right now was a fake heart created by the substitute heart ring, while the real heart was sealed inside the ring. The heart was a vital part of the body, and the substitute heart ring was originally meant to protect it. But it was different for Audre. Because the heartbeat of the fake heart didn't belong to him, this was one of the main reasons why Audre could remain calm in the face of questioning, and thus deceive those lie-detecting magic treasures. In fact, the heartbeat of the heart that was sealed in the heart substitution ring space was really frantic. When Ryoko Kamiya approached, Audre could clearly feel his heartbeat accelerate under the other party's barrage of questions. Chapter 1446. Audre hadn't expected Ryoko Kamiya to be so aggressive. Since they wanted to further expand the Jogong family's market in Huaxiu Nation, it was likely that their current strategy was to attack him, the director, who was currently in the limelight. Audre was tired. There had already been a lot of doubts about him online. If Kamiya Ryoko released all the evidence, it would probably cause another storm. Only the heavens knew that the Jogong family would use a day-wandering ghost as a witness. This was because there was indeed no third outsider in the core region at that time. Fang Xing was one of them, but he wasn't an outsider now. Furthermore, even if the Jogong family could find out who he was, given his temper, he wouldn't say anything. It looks like I'll have to discuss this matter with Shifu as soon as possible, and tell him to be careful in the next few days. Audre vaguely sensed that something wasn't right. He immediately sent Wang Ling a text message to warn him to be careful of that girl called Jiu Gong. Because in the previous conversation, Jiu Gong had specifically mentioned the iconic dead fish eyes. Furthermore, she firmly believed that the boy with dead fish eyes at the scene was studying at number 60 high school. Master, be careful. There's a girl called Jiu Gong who seems to be searching for dead fish eyes all over the world. She's suspecting what happened 6 years ago. After typing out the text message, Audre saved Kamiya Ryoko's phone number in his phone based on the relevant information provided by the Kamiya family. Name note, Queen A Dun. Audre closed his phone and leaned back on Headmaster Chen's leather sofa as he pondered for a while. That girl Ryoko Kamiya, it was indeed not easy to deal with. But the other party's choice to directly reveal his identity and come to number 60 high for an internal investigation was definitely the wrong choice. Anyone who had fought werewolves knew that revealing one's identity right from the start wasn't a wise choice. Number 60 high was his turf. It was impossible for them to cause trouble here. Thinking this, Audre sent another message to another person. Master's wife, that person called Kamiya Ryoko is investigating Shifu. She came to school to register today, be careful. On the other side, Lotus Sun replied almost instantly, who's your master's wife? Even through the screen, Audre could feel the steam. He. There was going to be a good show to watch. Given Lotus Sun's personality, Ryoko Kuya might not be able to get away with anything at number 60 high. You should know. The last girl who had tried to curry favor with Wang Ling. Everything had been arranged clearly by Miss Sunday. On the other side, Wang Ling was lost in deep thought after receiving the message. He realized that people nowadays really couldn't resist praising. When he was in front of the teaching building, he was secretly glad that the newcomer Kiyomiya Ryoko didn't come for him. The result was unexpected. The other party circled around. In the end, he sprinted in his direction. In conclusion, the only piece of evidence in Kiyomiya Yoshiko's hands was probably the day wandering ghost that had lived for decades. But this day ghost could not be used as conclusive evidence. After all, everyone knew that the Jugong family had always been responsible for exorcising demons. Only God knew if this day wandering ghost was just making it up to save its life. So Kiyomiya Yoshiko's purpose in entering number 60 high was in fact to look for Wang Ling. As long as they could find the boy that the Daycrawler ghost had seen, it would be the key evidence. After some calculations, Wang Ling had a general idea of what Ryoko Kyoya was thinking. He closed his eyes and released his spiritual sense. He directly locked onto Ryoko Kyoya's position in the school. Logically speaking, Ryoko Kyoya was only here to register today, and could leave once she was done. But it seemed that the other party had no intention of leaving. Inside the teaching building, Ryoko Kyoya strolled proudly down the school corridor. She was like a black swan, exuding an astonishingly cold and elegant aura. The only one who didn't fit in was the female bodyguard behind her, who was carrying a bag full of pancakes. Is this the transfer student from Sun Island? She's so beautiful. She's dressed like a gangster. She's not a sick girl, is she? You have to be careful when dating someone like this, or you might end up with a chopper. I think our president is better. She's too aloof, and I don't dare go up and talk to her at all. All the voices around her reached Ryoko's ears. Her eyes were like rays as they swept around. A lot of people thought that Ryoko was angry, and quickly shut their mouths. In fact, this was just Ryoko Kyoya secretly looking for dead fish eyes. Ryoko wouldn't easily get angry in front of outsiders, which was a good cultivation formed under the traditional education of the Ryoko family. As a young lady, she had to have the attitude of a young lady. She enjoyed the resources that most people in the world didn't have. It was normal for there to be some criticism. So Ryoko had long been accustomed to the comments of outsiders. Besides, these words weren't vicious, and they didn't even have the qualifications to make her heart beat faster. She purposely slowed down her pace as she walked past every classroom, searching for boys with dead fish eyes. Then she remembered their appearance. Although no one dared to be too close to her during the whole process, it was still a bit too much. After searching the first 2 classrooms, a girl seemed to have summoned up her courage and walked over to Ryoko Kyoya. She took the initiative to reach out her hand. Hello, Ryoko Kyoya. You are? Ryoko looked at the girl's hand, thinking about something, but in the end, she didn't shake it. She just said, "What's the matter?" Just say it. I'm the secretary of the student union. Our president would like to invite you over. The short-haired girl smiled. She hadn't expected Ryoko to be so cold and aloof, and she withdrew her hand a little awkwardly. Does your president often exploit you? Ryoko found it interesting. She knew who the president of number 60 high school student union was. Huagwa Water Curtain Group and the Ryoko family also had business cooperation. Ryoko Kyoya and Lotus Sun had once met at a family gathering, but that had been several years ago. No, there's no such thing, the president is very good to us. The short-haired girl was terrified. Then why do your hands look like chicken claws? It's obvious that you've been working with words for a long time. Ryoko Kyoya sneered. She then took out an unopened bottle of hand cream from her bag and gave it to the girl. This was a special hand cream made by the Ryoko family. It was made with pure natural ingredients and had an immediate effect. It couldn't be bought on the market. Ryoko Kyoya, don't get me wrong. I'm not giving you this because your hands look like chicken claws. It's just a fee for leading the way. Ryoko Kyoya said expressionlessly, then, let's go. Okay. The short-haired girl was flattered. On the way, Ryoko suddenly asked a question. Oh, by the way, what's the student union system like? How is the president elected? Of course it's elected by public vote every year. Of course, if there are objections to the president's work, he can also be publicly impeached. Ryoko Kiya nodded. But why do you ask, Ryoko? The short-haired girl was curious and had a bad feeling. Because I want to be the president. Ryoko's answer was concise and to the point. Chapter 1447. When Lotus-san received Audio's text message, she almost immediately felt a sense of danger. When she had seen Jogong Ryoko's name on the list earlier, she had vaguely felt that the Jogong family's purpose in entering number 60 high school wasn't pure. In the end, she hadn't expected this moth to be even bigger than she had imagined. Was it actually because of what had happened 6 years ago? She didn't know why the Jogong family was blaming Audio for everything, but since this matter had something to do with Wang Ling, she naturally couldn't just sit back and watch. It had taken her so long to finally learn classmate Wang Ling's secret. How could she let this secret leak out so easily? Jogong Ryoko, right. Lotus-san took a deep breath, and then directly accessed the surveillance footage from the computer in the student union office to find out Jogong Ryoko's current location. Everything was just as Audio had said. Jogong Ryoko seemed to be strolling around the school, but was in fact deliberately checking out the boys with dead fish eyes. The situation was more urgent than she had imagined. The girl immediately sent a text message to a student union officer and asked her to bring Jogong Ryoko to her office. And so, 5 or 6 minutes later, this aloof young miss dressed in a dark Gothic style appeared at the door of the student union office with an arrogant expression on her face. Seeing this, the female bodyguard carrying the bag of pancakes behind her hurriedly stopped the female officer and closed the office door. There was a strong smell of gunpowder. It was as if a big fight could break out at any moment. Will they fight? The female officer was a little worried. You're thinking too much. They're both young misses, how could they fight? I'm actually saving you by pulling you back. Saving me? Knowing too much isn't a good thing, said the female bodyguard. This was the conclusion of her many years as a personal bodyguard. It was better not to get involved in a fight between young misses so easily. Otherwise, there was a high chance that you would be caught and thrown into the river. Sure enough, everything was as the female bodyguard had predicted. It was impossible for them to fight, but the smell of gunpowder was indeed very strong. Feeling the door close behind her, Jogong Ryoko walked briskly to the desk. She propped herself up on the table and stared at the calm girl in front of her with her purple eyes, a faint murderous look in her eyes. Lotus-san, long time no see. Yeah, long time no see. Lotus-san smiled. I didn't expect you to actually choose number 60 high this time. Because she had already seen Kwamiya Lianko's temper, Lotus-san didn't feel uncomfortable with Kwamiya Ryoko's somewhat aggressive attitude. Kwamiya Yoshiko could be considered an old acquaintance of hers, so she had a certain degree of understanding of her. Thus, it might be easier for Lotus-san to deal with Jiogong than for Jiang Inying. We've all grown a lot. But with your cultivation level, why haven't you broken through to foundation establishment? I'm about to break through. Being able to break through the foundation establishment stage to the Jindan stage in the first year of high school, isn't this amazing growth? Kamiya Yoshiko said as she found a chair and sat down. It was normal for girls to compare with each other. Lotus-san didn't find this strange, and the expression on her face clearly showed some helplessness. When it comes to realms, just let nature take its course. Also, it's useless for girls to just grow in realms. What do you mean? Kwamiya Ryoko frowned slightly, feeling that there was more to it than meets the eye. You know what I mean. Lotus-san smiled reservedly as she looked at Kwamiya's flatness. Sometimes, flatness wasn't just an adjective, it could also be a noun. Realizing that Lotus-san had turned the tables on her, the corners of Kwamiya Ryoko's mouth twitched. Aren't you the same? A little better than you. Lotus-san straightened her back to show off her curvaceous figure. In a situation where there wasn't an obvious gap between them, being a little better hurt the most. It had to be said that Lotus Sun's words indeed had the effect of lightning bolts. Komiya Ryoko instantly had a nervous breakdown. She was both embarrassed and annoyed, and didn't know what to say. After all, this was a topic that only girls would compare and constantly pay attention to. It could only be said that as the president of No. 60 High School's student council, Lotus Sun was in the end Lotus Sunday. Such an outstanding ability to set the pace, indeed wasn't something that ordinary people could do. With just a few words, Jiogong Ryoko was flustered, and she even forgot why she had come to the student council in the first place. Although, on the surface, Jiogong Ryoko's expression didn't change much. But Lotus Sun knew that classmate Jiogong's heart must be in a mess right now. However, Lotus Sun already admired her for being able to control her emotions and not let them show on her face. She was indeed a respectable opponent. Unfortunately, her level wasn't high enough. After a moment of dead silence, Jiogong Ryoko took a deep breath and braced herself to get back at Lotus Sunday. Your family started out in the elixir business. So I actually have reason to suspect that you've taken some special elixir. Contrary to Jiogong Ryoko's expectations, the girl sitting in the president's seat directly admitted it. Lotus Sun, that's right, classmate Jiogong, I took some supplements. You're actually admitting it just like that? Jiogong Ryoko was alarmed and astonished at Lotus Sun's strategy. She felt like she was now playing chess with Lotus Sunday. But she couldn't understand the other party's strategy at all. Directly admitting it was fine, but what kind of operation was this? Jiogong Ryoko felt that this was actually a very private matter. It was like some celebrities who clearly had plastic surgery but said they hadn't. But for girls, that part, of course it had to be natural, so they could show off. Although I took supplements, they're all natural. Lotus Sun smiled slightly. Classmate Jiogong should be well aware of the importance of genes. Genes? The supplements I'm taking can only stimulate my original genes and allow me to grow. But if your genes aren't good enough, it's useless no matter how much you eat. Lotus Sun smiled. It's like some of the growth products on the market. If your parents aren't tall, no matter how much you eat, you won't be able to change your genes and grow taller. The more Jiogong Ryoko listened, the more she felt that there was something wrong with her words. Speak clearly, what do you mean? Lotus Sun hurriedly apologized. Classmate Jiogong, don't misunderstand, I didn't mean anything else. I just knew that classmate Jiogong might come to No. 60 High, so I prepared a greeting gift in advance. Saying that, she opened a drawer and put the gift box she had prepared on the table. Jiogong Ryoko walked over and stroked the box. What's this? The supplements I took. Lotus Sun smiled. As long as you take them, they'll take effect immediately. Heh, do I need something like that? Jiogong Ryoko snorted, but still reached out to accept the gift with a grateful expression. Don't get me wrong, I'm just leaving it for my female bodyguard. Who knows if it's poisoned? Understood. Lotus Sun nodded. After accepting the gift, Jiogong Ryoko immediately turned to leave. It wasn't until the office door was closed that Lotus Sun's expression completely relaxed. Classmate Jiogong was indeed very difficult to deal with. However, she had won this round, because the so-called supplements in the gift box weren't real supplements. Instead, it was a mild hallucinogenic water called "The Whole World is Dead Fish Eyes." It could be consumed orally or inhaled to achieve the same effect. Those who were affected would hallucinate for 72 hours. As the name suggested, everyone's eyes would turn into dead fish eyes in the eyes of those who were affected. This was what Lotus Sun had predicted might happen, and she had specially commissioned the group's research department to secretly prepare the medicine. She hadn't expected it to really come in handy this time. Elsewhere, after leaving the office, Jiogong Ryoko immediately went to the women's restroom. She couldn't wait to open the bottle of the supplements. First, she sniffed it, and then frowned. This should be taken orally. Jiogong Ryoko was deeply conflicted. After all, this was something that had to be eaten. After careful consideration, Jiogong Ryoko felt that it was better to be cautious. Heh, Lotus-san, are you trying to trick me into taking the medicine? I won't fall for it. I'm going to test it and see what on earth it is. So, she resisted the urge to take it and put the medicine away again. But Jiogong Ryoko didn't know. In fact, she had already fallen for it. The whole world is dead fish eyes medicine was equally effective when inhaled. And this was also within Lotus-san's calculations. Chapter 1448. Although Ryoko Kwamiya's heart was really eager for the tonic, her rationality eventually overcame her desire. Because this wasn't the first time she had fallen for Lotus-san's tricks. At that banquet of the rich and powerful, Ryoko Kwamiya believed Lotus-san's words and ate a pill that was said to make the body grow faster. She thought it was the supplement of her dreams. It turned out to be a rapid growth pill. As a result, when Ryoko woke up that night, she lay directly in the pile of hair. Those who didn't know would think that they were filming a sequel to The Grudge, however, that was a long time ago. Everyone had a time when they were young and mischievous, and Lotus-san was no exception. Lotus-san, do you think I'll be fooled a second time after being fooled once? Kamiya Ryoko sneered inwardly and walked out of the bathroom confidently. Miss, how is it? How do you feel? The female bodyguard leaned over and asked. No, I didn't. Because I thought about it, it might be a trap, Ryoko said calmly. Miss is wise. The female bodyguard nodded. She secretly rejoiced at her young Miss's wit. Actually, if you're still worried, you can let me taste it next time. Make sure there's no poison, then. In your dreams. Kamiya Ryoko glanced at the female bodyguard. You're already big enough. If you get any bigger, are you trying to inflate a hot air balloon? The female bodyguard fell silent. She lowered her head, not daring to make a sound. Yet, Ryoko Jimiya was still staring at her, and the look in her eyes was getting more and more strange. Wait. Did you have plastic surgery? Plastic surgery? No. The female bodyguard panicked. Really? Ryoko Kwamiya was skeptical. No. I definitely didn't get breast implants. The female bodyguard said. Who asked you that? Ryoko Kwamiya frowned. I mean, why do I feel like your eyes are different from before? I remember that you have double eyelids. How come you have dead fish eyes now? Dead fish eyes? No way. The female bodyguard quickly took out her mobile phone and turned on the selfie mode to observe. She had spent a lot of money on her eyelids, but they still shone beautifully under the filter. Damn it. Kwamiya Ryoko rubbed her forehead. She felt that she must have been too anxious to find the dead fish-eyed boy, causing her to hallucinate. However, none of this mattered. The search for the dead fish-eyed boy had to continue. She had already checked 2 classrooms earlier. Just as she was about to continue her search, she saw the number 60 high alumni walking toward her, each and every one of them staring at her with dead fish eyes. Ryoko Kwamiya slowly sent a question mark. Were there so many dead fish eyes in this school? Because of Audiobook's early message, Wang Ling was a little absent-minded in class all morning. He was afraid that Ryoko Kwamiya would find him. Therefore, he had been secretly watching Kwamiya Yoshiko's movements. Unexpectedly, when it was almost noon, Ryoko Kwamiya went back on her own, as expected of the Huagwa Water Curtain Group. To think that he could even develop something as miraculous as the dead fish eyes potion. Back then, he had been worried whether it would be a blessing or a curse if Lotus-san found out about him. Looking at it now, he felt that he might have been worrying too much. Relying on her family's technology and money, the girl could provide him with a good cover. This time, it was all thanks to Lotus Sunday. Indeed, Wang Ling was grateful from the bottom of his heart. He felt that he should express his gratitude. Should I give her crispy noodle snacks? Wang Ling rubbed his chin, feeling a little conflicted. Giving her crispy noodle snacks would be a little too obvious. After all, he was probably the only person in this class who could give her crispy noodle snacks. It would be better to make it simple. Thus, while Lotus-san was still in the student union office at noon, Wang Ling slipped a White Rabbit creamy candy into her pencil case in passing. This was another childhood snack that Wang Ling loved deeply. It was just that he liked it far less than crispy noodle snacks. It was just an ordinary liking. Sometimes, in order to replenish the sugar in his body, Wang Ling would basically carry one or two of them with him. Of course, while this White Rabbit creamy candy looked simple, it had actually been enchanted. As for its effect, he just had to wait until Lotus-san ate it. Elsewhere, Ryoko Kamiya, who thought there was something wrong with her brain, quickly returned to the high-end villa she was staying in. This was a place the Kamiya family had specially bought to make it easier for Ryoko to continue her activities in Songhai City. The price of the entire villa was 600,000 per square meter, which was undoubtedly an aristocratic area. Kamiya's villa was divided into 5 floors, including a basement. Ryoko's personal space was on the 2nd and 3rd floors. The first floor was used to receive foreign guests, while the basement was occupied by security personnel as well as some researchers. "Is Miss feeling better?" The female bodyguard poured Kamiya a cup of hot water. Neither she nor Kamiya had expected to be schemed against on their first trip to number 60 high school. A private doctor gave Kamiya Ryoko a detailed checkup. This was a doctor whom the Kamiya family had specially assigned to accompany her. He was a very young but very experienced lad. He had very neat, slicked back hair and wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, looking completely like a society elite. "Dr. Kawamura, how is it?" the female bodyguard asked as she looked at the doctor. Kimura Kawamura quickly concluded, "Miss must have been drugged with some kind of hallucinogen." "Hallucinogen?" Ryoko frowned. "I didn't eat that kind of thing. You don't have to take it. High-grade hallucinogens are equally effective when inhaled." Kimura Daikawa put down the stethoscope and said, "Inhale." Ryoko seemed to realize something in an instant. She didn't say anything and just clenched her fists. It seems that Miss should already know which part is the problem. Kimura Daikawa tried to restrain his smile. "Enough nonsense. Is there any way to remove the hallucinogenic effects?" Jiao Gong asked. "To remove the effects of a hallucinogen, we need to prescribe the right medicine, but if we take into account the analysis of the ingredients and the research and development time, it usually takes a long time." The young lady's symptoms were actually not very strong. "It will be lifted on its own in about 2 to 3 days, Kimura Daikawa said. "This time, I underestimated my opponent." Kamiya Ryoko sighed. "The future is long. Miss, you don't have to be so hasty. Master said that the current situation is favorable to us," said Kimura Daikawa. "So as long as we follow the prescribed order, there will be no problem." "I know." Ryoko Kamiya nodded. In fact, she had fallen into the trap this time. But for Ryoko Kamiya, it wasn't like she hadn't gained anything at all. If that dead fish-eyed boy wasn't at number 60 high school, then why had Lotus-san given her that kind of drug to cover it up? This showed that she might already be very close to the truth. Also, it seemed that Lotus-san definitely knew something. At that moment, the female bodyguard looked at the time and reminded her, "Miss, the internet celebrity tech expert you made an appointment with, Master Shochong, is already at the door." Ryoko Kamiya nodded. "Have him wait for me on the 1st floor. I'll go down after I change." Chapter 1449. Brother Black smiled. Life or death was hard to predict. Created by Brother Chong, self-destructed, taking advantage of Fan Xing's death-seeking operation last time, Shochong's fully automatic escape apartment became a hot topic. Shochong himself directly rushed to the forefront of popular civilian scientists. As one of the representatives of the new generation of exorcism, Jimiya Ryoko had always been very interested in cutting-edge technology. Many aspects of the Jiogong family's exorcism had been integrated with modern science, using technology to complete various tasks. As a result, the customer satisfaction rate had been greatly improved. Jimiya Ryoko's summoning of Shochong this time had actually been decided long before the Jimiya family had come to China. In other words, before Shochong had become as popular as he was now, the Jimiya family had already been on track with him. While Shochong waited in the reception room on the first floor, the villa's maids served him the electricity that had been carefully prepared. About 10 minutes later, Jimiya Ryoko changed into a purple maple leaf kimono and slowly walked down the stairs in wooden clogs. On the back of the kimono was the Jimiya family's crow emblem. This was the kind of outfit Jimiya had carefully prepared out of respect for scientists. After going downstairs, her purple eyes locked onto Shochong. This was the first time she had seen Shochong in person, and she was a little surprised that he was actually as slovenly as he looked in his photos. He was wearing a pair of straw sandals and a yellowed white coat. His face was full of stubble and even his hair was a mess of seaweed. Jimiya Ryoko felt that her good impression of him had instantly eroded. She had met 3 people in total today. Putting aside Lotus Sun, the remaining 2 were Audiobook and Shochong. Although Audiobook was a very annoying liar, Jimiya felt that he was many times better than Shochong in terms of first impression. At the very least, he was a clean man. "Miss, how about I let him go back?" the female bodyguard said in a low voice, sensing that the atmosphere wasn't right. "I invited him here, how can I let him go back so easily?" Jimiya Ryoko frowned. She could only brace herself for now, because there was a very strange smell on Shochong. Jimiya Ryoko chose to sit on a sofa a few seats away. Unexpectedly, as soon as she sat down, Shochong's butt automatically moved toward her, as if he had a pulley installed. Jimiya Ryoko was speechless. "Hello, Miss Jiogong." Shochong giggled. "Although this is the first time we've met, I've actually brought a lot of experimental magic treasures that haven't been mass-produced yet. For example, just now when you saw me, you automatically closed the distance between us. This is actually the effect of the social nano underwear that I invented." Social nano underwear. There was an outbreak of influenza a while ago. During such an epidemic, it's actually very important to maintain a good social distance. Shochong began to introduce his product. And this, social nano underwear, can automatically maintain a distance of about 1 meter from the person you see. You don't even need to walk. You just need to sit like this, and your butt will automatically approach it as if it has a pulley. "What if he runs away?" the female bodyguard asked curiously. "That's a good question, Mississippi," Shochong said. "If he ran away, of course he would chase after him. The faster the opponent runs, the faster the buttocks move. So the flaw of this product is that if the speed is too fast, the strong friction will easily burn the buttocks." As expected of Master Shochong. Hearing this, Jimiya Ryoko took a deep breath. She suppressed her urge to curse and did her best to maintain her composure as a young miss. After all, she was the one who had invited him, and she couldn't lose her temper over a disagreement. Also, Jimiya Ryoko had in fact investigated Shochong beforehand, and knew that he had accumulated a lot of inventions that were basically useless, but whether these inventions were useful or not wasn't the point. What Jimiya Ryoko was interested in was Shochong's ingenious design ideas. "Master Shochong should know why I'm here. I've always heard that the Jimiya family is going to attack Huaxiao Nation's demon and exorcism market." Shochong smiled. Ever since he became popular, he had been looking for a suitable partner, intending to mass-produce his inventions and creations. The Jimiya family had contacted him a long time ago. He felt that this was a good opportunity. He had worked for Fan Xing before, but Fan Xing's heart wasn't in the right place. Furthermore, it seemed like he had been cursed by some evil spirit, and had to be hospitalized every 2 or 3 days. A fine bird chose a good tree to nest in. Shochong had long wanted to work in a different place. No matter how rich Fan Xing was. Could he compare to the support of the entire Jimiya family? "As long as the Jimiya family can use my products, I think they'll be like a tiger that has grown wings when it comes to demon and exorcism. Now, let me introduce. Master, please wait." Jimiya Ryoko didn't intend to let Shochong go on with his introduction, and instead went straight to the point. We do need some high-end scientific research products to help our Jamiya family expand our market, but it's hard to say whether the magic treasures developed by Master will meet our needs. If Miss Jamiya needs a customized magic treasure, that's possible. Why don't you tell me what you think, said Shochong. I need to find a boy with dead fish eyes. But it's been 6 years, and this boy is now 16 years old. Are there any relevant clues? The only clue we have now is that this boy might be in the high school I'm about to transfer to. Jamiya Ryoko frowned. And I'm not sure if he's had plastic surgery. Plastic surgery doesn't matter. You can change your appearance, but you can't change your genes. If there's genetic data related to this boy, it might be much easier to find him, said Shochong. Right now, the only clue we have is the testimony of a day ghost. Jamiya Ryoko said with a headache. Back then, it was just a boy, and his facial features hadn't fully developed. The Jamiya family had also found many masters to predict what the boy would look like when he grew up based on the description of the day ghost. The result was unreliable. So, what is Miss Jamiya's need? Shochong felt that things were a bit interesting. I hope that Master can develop a magic treasure to help me find this dead fish-eyed boy. It's difficult, and the research and development costs. Is 5 billion enough? Deal. Chapter 1450. My research and development has always been fast. It will only take a week for an experimental version of the artifact to appear. Before that, please be patient, Miss Jogong. At this moment, Shochong got up and said with a smile, I already have a general design idea, so Miss Jogong, I will take my leave first. As expected of Master Shochong, I look forward to the results of your research and development. Jogong nodded and tried to squeeze out a smile, but unfortunately, the expression on her face was still very stiff. No problem. Shochong smiled. I will arrange for someone to go to Master Shochong's Research Institute to sign the contract. 5 billion in research and development funds will be paid immediately. Thank you, Mississippi, Shochong bowed. Then he quickly left. 5 billion in research and development funds was something that Shochong had never dreamed of. After all, the Jogong family was generous. Compared to a self-employed person like Fan Xing, the abundance of funds made Shochong very satisfied. With such a huge research and development cost, he was one step closer to his big plan. Shochong's big plan originated from a meteorite wrapped in black light. This meteorite was still sealed in his research institute. Although it was only 0.5 g in size, it contained a huge amount of energy. Moreover, this small meteorite had a shocking amount of radiation and had the magical power to decompose spirit energy. If he could make good use of it. Maybe this small black meteorite could provide wireless energy. Just like the legendary, artificial sun. And this was Shochong's infinite energy big plan. He gave this black meteorite that was only the size of a grain of sand a very nice name, Eternity. The Jogong family had spent 5 billion as research and development funds to find the dead fish-eyed boy. In fact, Shochong felt that it would only take a few tens of millions to develop such a treasure. As for the rest of the funds, he could invest them all in his big plan. Between the first party and the second party seemed to be the weaker party, but in fact, as long as they were good at calculation, they would not suffer too much. Especially when it came to research and development funds like this. As for how much to invest, it was up to Shochong. Even if it was valued in the end, it would not be a problem. After all, knowledge was priceless. However, for his infinite energy big plan, Shochong estimated that his research funds would at least be about 20 billion. Although he had received 5 billion in research and development funds from the Jogong family, it was in fact far from enough. So, around that night, Shochong went to another man's house. That was Lotus Sun's villa. Hello, I've heard a lot about you, Master Shochong. The young lady took the initiative to shake hands with Shochong. This made Shochong even more surprised. He purposely made himself look very sloppy. Many passers-by who saw him pinched their noses and rolled their eyes at him. When Shochong first arrived at Kya's house, he could clearly feel that Kya Ryoko was trying her best to restrain herself. At that time, he had secretly admired the cultivation of the eldest daughter of the Jeogong family. Unexpectedly, Lotus Sun's generous and warm handshake had given Shochong a whole new impact. It was said that the young lady of Hwagwa Water Curtain Group was generous and decent, and it was indeed true. Please wait a moment, Miss Lotus Sunday. Seeing Lotus Sun so enthusiastic, Shochong naturally couldn't be impolite. He took out a spray and sprayed his hands, cleaning them a little before returning the grip. I hope Miss Sun won't take offense. I just came out of the lab and am a little disheveled. It's okay, I understand. Lotus Sun smiled and nodded. Grandmaster, please sit. Then, she snapped her fingers. Auntie Chiu, who had been waiting respectfully in the back for a long time, brought over the tea and pastries she had prepared. In fact, this meeting with Lotus Sun this time had been a last-minute decision by Shochong. After leaving the Jeogong family, he actually had a few investors he wanted to meet, all of whom were very interested in his new magic treasure. Although 20 billion yuan in research funding was an astronomical figure, as long as he found a few more clients, he would be able to scrape together the money. But what Shochong hadn't expected was that as soon as he stepped out of Shochong's house, this Miss Sun of Hwagwa Water Curtain Group would actually take the initiative to contact him. This was a big fish. One person was worth 100, or even 1,000, investors. For the sake of his research funding, Shochong naturally wouldn't miss out on this kind of client who had the ability to spend money. I'm not someone who likes to beat around the bush. Today, I asked Grandmaster Shochong to come here. I wanted to ask classmate Jeogong what kind of magic treasure he wants you to invent. Dressed in a long blue muslin dress, Lotus Sun held a tray in one hand and a black teacup in the other. Her back was ramrod straight, showing off the figure and demeanor of a young Mississippi. Shochong was silent for a moment, then smiled bitterly. This matter involves the client's secrets. You probably haven't signed the relevant contract yet. Since you haven't, the contract is just a piece of waste paper to wipe your ass. It's not a leak of secrets. Lotus Sun smiled. But even so, I can't say. Shochong frowned, but still decided to keep silent. Although his goal was to raise funds, he still had his professional ethics. Grandmaster, even if you don't say, I know. At that moment, Lotus Sun looked at Shochong and said, Did Miss Jeogong Ryoko ask Grandmaster to create a magic treasure that can find dead fish-eyed boys? Shochong's pupils instantly contracted at these words. This. Shochong's eyes widened, his face full of disbelief. He didn't know where on earth this eldest Miss Sun had gotten this information. He was even more amazed at the girl's ability to control intelligence. Of course, it was impossible for Lotus Sun to do this without alerting the power of her family. Jeogong was a dangerous person. So after Jeogong Ryoko left school, Lotus Sun immediately got in touch with grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and asked him to use Battle Sex Intelligence Network to monitor all of Jeogong Ryoko's movements. During this period of time, everything Jeogong Ryoko had said, done, and met, in fact, everything was in Battle Sex Intelligence Network. In fact, there were already spies arranged by Battle Sect in the Jeogong family's villa. It seems that what I said was completely correct. Lotus Sun smiled faintly. I actually understand why Grandmaster doesn't want to say. But the leak of this information has nothing to do with Grandmaster. My purpose in looking for Grandmaster this time is very simple, and that is, I hope that Grandmaster can develop a magic treasure that can interfere with the other party's magic treasure. Miss Sun, I mean that Jeogong wants you to develop some magic treasure. You just need to develop a magic treasure that can restrain her in the opposite direction, said Lotus Sunday, developing it in the opposite direction. That's difficult, and it won't be cheap. Didn't she offer you 5 billion? At that moment, Lotus Sun raised her willowy eyebrows. Yes. Can Miss Sun also offer that kind of price? Shochong was curious. No. The girl put her black teacup back on the coffee table and just smiled. I'll pay triple. What did Miss Sun say? Shochong couldn't believe his ears. Triple. Now, I'm also working hard to learn how to keep a low profile, but sometimes I have to take action. Saying this, Lotus Sun smiled faintly. If Jiogong wants to play, then I'll play with her. Shochong wiped at his sweat. Now, he completely understood that this was simply a war between women. Women were really scary. Fortunately, he wasn't married yet. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.